is pure jealousy. The teacher points to an empty seat, and the kid who looks like a rejected Scooby-Doo character. Oh, he was practically green with envy. He gives his buddy a little signal time for a prank. The plan was simple as the new kid walks. If I stick out a foot, watch him trip, and just like that, total humiliation in front of everyone. Genius, right? But here's the thing. They didn't count on the new kid. He saw it coming, and he just stopped right in front of him. Lee Jae-hyung thought his timing was perfect. Oops, it didn't work. Our protagonist just stares. Let him down! Ice cold! So Lee Jae-hyung asks, "Who do you think you're looking at?" No one, and I mean no one, could possibly guess what was going through the new kid's mind as he just stared in complete silence. That's when the teacher chimed in. "Why did you stop?" All of a sudden, Ijin just smiles. He apologizes, so polite, and keeps on walking. Lee Jae-hyung thought to himself, "He got scared of me." His friend agreed, thinking, "Guess the new kid isn't so tough after all." What these boys didn't know is that in the moment, Ijin stopped. I remembered a piece of advice from the major. When you go back to Korea, Ijin, don't get involved in fights. The major knew Ijin is a natural-born strategist. Every single move is calculated, and honestly, he feared that about him. When the protagonist finally sat down, the boy next to him, a kid named Park Young-chan, greeted him and then gave him a warning. "Watch out for those guys. They're the bullies who run this school. You should avoid them." The next few classes went by, and Ijin felt something strange. Normal boys in a normal school. Another kid talking about his favorite webtoon. It was peaceful, comfortable in his memories. No moment was ever like this. Every moment was running in the rain with his life on the line. The training was hell. So many years of it, it made him cold. When he closes his eyes, he can still feel those days. But when he opens them again, this peace, it's wonderful. But while his life was peace and quiet in another classroom, a girl, Eugene's sister, didn't know what peace was. She was happy, of course. Her brother was finally home after being missing for 10 years. But a blonde girl walked up to her, yanking her from her thoughts. "Hey, Daeyoon, I need your gym clothes for class today." Daeyoon had her clothes, but she couldn't just give them away, or she'd have none. The girl just laughed a nasty, mocking laugh. Then she did something that got everyone's attention. A loud slap across Daeyoon's face. Daeyoon didn't have the right to ask questions or disobey an order. This was her daily life. Her classmates did nothing, absolutely nothing to protect her. And she just didn't have the courage when it was time to go home. She noticed her brother. He had gone to her school and he was waiting for her. She's a little surprised for a second and asks if he was waiting for her. He says, yeah, he was hoping they could walk home together. He also says that if she has other plans, she can just go ahead without him. Daeyoon quickly looks around and says she doesn't have any other plans, but you can tell she's still super nervous about walking with him. Ijin then says that if she's not busy, they'll just walk home together in the end. She agrees a little later. They're walking down the street next to each other, and it's obviously awkward for both of them. Ijin tries to break the tension by asking her if she feels awkward too. Daeyoon is surprised, he asked, and quickly says she's not. But Ijin tells her it's okay, because he feels pretty awkward himself. Luckily, that seems to make her chill out a bit. Ijin then tells her that he was only 9 when the accident happened, so he doesn't really remember much about his family, including her, he says. It must be weird for her too, since she was only 7 and probably doesn't remember a lot either. Daeyoon doesn't say anything because he's right. Right then, she hears some voices she recognizes from around the corner, and she just freezes. When Daeyoon looks to see who it is, she sees one of the girls that was bullying her earlier in class. Turns out she's friends with the blonde girl who slapped Daeyoon at school. This new bully spots Daeyoon right away and starts yelling at her. Daeyoon starts freaking out, sweating, and not knowing what to do. One of the dudes with the bully asks who Daeyoon is the bully. Says she's the girl that Hwajin, the blonde psycho from earlier, hates. Then she sees Ijin with Daeyoon and starts making fun of her, asking if that's her boyfriend. She then says something nasty like she didn't know bitches could get dates. Daeyoon gets super shy and quickly tries to explain that Ijin is just her brother. The bully is actually surprised by this since she had no idea Daeyoon even had a brother after hearing all that trash talk. Ijin asks Daeyoon if this girl is her friend. Daeyoon quietly says yeah. They're in the same homeroom, but the bully just keeps going, calling Daeyoon a bitch again and asking since when they were friends, Daeun is shaking while the bully keeps running her mouth. Ijin just gives the girl an ice cold stare, the kind that could freeze you. Solid, the guy sitting next to the bully, doesn't like Ijin's death glare at all. He gets pissed and tells Ijin to watch it, or he'll get messed up. Ijin just keeps staring, which makes the fatty even madder. The bully girl starts hyping him up, trying to get him to fight Ijin. Finally, the fatty loses his cool and walks right up to Ijin. Ijin quickly pushes Daeun behind him and gets in the guy's face. This stupid head asks if Ijin is trying to act all tough. For his sister, Ijin sees right away how clueless this guy is, standing so close with all his weak spots, totally exposed. What's even funnier is that the fatty doesn't have any weapons on him. Ijin can't help but think, this guy is an idiot for leaving himself so open. But then he remembers what Major Kang told him about not fighting. Ijin sighs, looks away, and just tries to walk off. But the fatty isn't having it. He grabs Ijin by the collar and pulls his hand back, ready to slap him before he can. Daeun runs in between them. She bows her head and tries to explain to the bullies that Ijin has been living abroad and doesn't know how things work in Korea. The main bully girl just laughs at Daeun for begging, while Daeun keeps shaking in fear. The fatty just yells at Daeun, saying he doesn't care where. Ijin lives. Seeing his sister so scared and trembling totally sets Ijin off. He grabs the fatty's wrist and twists it. The dude starts crying out in pain, even though Ijin barely did anything. Ijin then drops his bag and takes off his school jacket. He calmly tells his sister to wait and covers her face with his jacket, telling her it'll be over in a minute. Just then, the loud-mouthed thug charges him from behind. Ijin just spins around like it's nothing and smacks the guy right across the face. That one slap sends the thug flying backwards, spitting blood before he hits the ground like a sack of potatoes. The bully girl and the other goon are so freaked out, they look like they're about to wet their pants. Meanwhile, Ijin sighs, bummed that he broke his promise to Major Kang. But hey, it's not really his fault that fatty bastard was asking for it. The other goon is so scared he's second-guessing, even breathing in Ijin's direction. The scene then cuts to the countryside where we see soldiers training like crazy. Major Kang is there watching over everything. Another soldier comes up and reminds Kang that it's Ijin's first day of school. Hearing that, Major Kang starts to worry, even though he taught Ijin for 6 months how to live a normal life. He's scared Ijin won't be able to adjust after so many years. As a merc still, Kang is proud and hopes the lessons he taught will help Ijin out. About that, turns out Major Kang's lesson didn't stick because Ijin is out here treating these bullies like absolute trash. The other bullies just stare in shock at the fatty, who's knocked out cold on the ground with his eyes rolled back in his head. The bully girl and her buddy are shaking as Ijin walks over to them in a split second. Ijin lunges and hits the other thug with a monster punch to the gut, sending the guy flying before he slams onto the ground. The cocky girl's jaw is on the floor. She can't believe what she's seeing when Ijin turns to look at her. His death stare makes her tremble. Daeun pulls the jacket off her face, her hands shaking as she sees the two thugs, totally knocked out. It's only been a minute, but Ijin notices his sister is watching. He gives the cocky girl one last scary look and then walks away from her. He turns to Daeun and says sorry for suddenly covering her face. That just makes things more awkward for Daeun. So Ijin tries to make it better by asking if she wants to get snacks from her favorite spot. Daeun mumbles that it's fine and they don't have to. So Ijin just says they should head home then. As Daeun and Ijin get all friendly, the bully girl is just standing there totally freaked out. She's shocked that this dude who was so scary a second ago is now acting like a super sweet big brother. As they walk away, Daeun gives the bully one last little wave, leaving her just standing there completely terrified. On the way home, Daeun asks Ijin if he was the one who took out those two guys. Ijin says yeah, which just makes her more curious about him since he doesn't seem like a fighter. She then tells him that in Korea, staring at people like he did is considered rude and can cause problems. Ijin agrees and adds that looking someone in the eye can be a bad idea, depending on who it is, just like where he came from. Daeun is confused and asks why he stared at those thugs. Then Ijin just says he saw that she was scared and wanted to protect her. Daeun is totally surprised by his answers and just looks down. Blushing, gets super awkward and quiet as they keep walking. Looks like Daeun's gonna have to get used to having a protective big bro. When they get home, their grandpa is a nervous wreck. He's telling Ijin to just relax and eat some fruit, but Ijin insists on doing the dishes. Grandpa doesn't really know what to do, so he just lets Ijin take over as Ijin is washing the dishes. Grandpa asks if dinner was alright, saying he's not the best cook. Ijin just plays it cool and tells Grandpa not to worry about it. He says the food's been awesome and he's enjoyed everything. The old man looks super relieved to hear that you can tell he's really happy. Grandpa then asks Daeon if she liked the food too, and she nods. Then Grandpa changes the subject and asks Ijin about his first day of school, wanting to know if anything cool happened. Ijin hesitates for a second, looking a little nervous to answer Dae. Yeon gets a little anxious too, thinking about how crazy the day was. But after a beat, Ijin just says it was a good day. Grandpa's face totally lights up when he hears this, looking super relieved and happy. Later that night, when everyone's in bed, Ijin is still awake. He's thinking back to when his grandpa first saw him again, and he remembers how happy the old man was living. With his grandpa and sister for a bit has started to melt Ijin's cold heart. Then he starts thinking about the plane crash. All the passengers were panicking, oxygen masks dropping down. While everyone else was scrambling, Ijin's parents were just focused on getting his mask on so he could breathe. It was a terrifying day. Right as he remembers the plane starting to fall, Ijin snaps awake, jumping out of bed, and breathing hard from the nightmare. His heart is pounding. But then he realizes it was just a dream. He looks at his clock and sees it's morning. While he's sitting there, he hears noises from the living room. He gets up and goes to check it out and finds his sister making breakfast. He asks where their grandpa is. She tells him that Grandpa already left for work super early. She explains that he took some time off just to be there when Ijin got back. But his vacation days are over now, so he had to go back. She gets into her uniform and gets ready to leave. She tells Ijin that breakfast is on the table and makes sure he knows to eat. After she leaves, Ijin just looks at all the food she left out for him back at her school. We see the bully girl with the blonde one. Huijin turns out. Huijin found out that the new transfer student is Daeyoon's brother. The bully girl nervously says, "Yeah, it's true." She starts thinking about what happened with Ijin and gets freaked out, remembering how he took down 2 of her friends with just 1 punch. Hui. Ijin asks why she's so scared, but the bully girl is just frozen, too terrified to say anything. Honestly, I'm tired of calling her the bully girl. So from now on, let's just call her Chicken Shake. Huijin keeps bugging Chicken Shake about what went down. Finally, Chicken Shake gets a grip and says they should probably stop messing with Daeon. That death stare Ijin gave her is still stuck in her head and she can't forget it even though she's scared. She tries to tell herself it's all good. Hoi, Ijin and her brother are the top dogs at school, and nobody messes with them. A little later, we see Daeyoon again, and what do you know? She gets smacked hard on the head just like always. He turns around and sees Hoi, Ijin, and Chicken Shake together, ready to give her a hard time. Again, Daeon asks them what they want now. Hoi Ijin just tells her to come with them when Daeon asks where the cocky blonde gets pissed off. She snaps at Daeon to stop acting tough and just do what she's told if she doesn't want to get hurt. She also says that having a brother doesn't change anything. Next thing you know, we're at the school's recycling area, and Daeyoon is getting totally pummeled by the cocky blonde after landing a few kicks. The blonde tells Daeyoon to stay down. Daeyoon is trying to breathe and asks why she's even getting beat up. That's when Hui Ijin brings up her brother. She tells Daeyoon to warn her brother to stop acting so tough and full of himself. She makes it clear that what happens next to her brother isn't their problem because he's about to have a really bad time. Daeon is confused and asks if they're going after her brother. Now Hui Ijin says yep and reminds her that the 2 guys Ijin beat up are friends with her own brother. Since Daeyoon and her brother messed with them, they're not getting away with it. It's like poking a bear. Hearing this, Daeyoon's face goes completely white. She screams at the 2 thugs asking what they're going to do to her brother. For that, she gets a hard slap right across the face. The slap leaves a mark, but that pain is nothing compared to how bad she feels knowing her brother is in danger. Daeyoon grits her teeth, pulls herself together, and just bolts out of there. Leaving the 2 thug women behind the scene, switches back to the 3rd year classroom. You can feel the tension in the air. Even the regular bullies are being quiet. Everyone's nervous because the school's biggest bully just walked in with his crew, and it looks like things with Ijin are about to blow up. But Ijin, he's just sitting there cool as a cucumber. The 2 guys who got wrecked yesterday are there too, walking with their boss. Behind them is the biggest bully of them all. The top dog right then, like it's planned. Daeon bursts into the classroom. She's out of breath. Her face is bruised, and her uniform is all dirty. Ijin jumps up from his seat, his eyes wide with shock, when he sees his sister's beaten-up face and messed-up uniform. The bully boss starts talking trash, making fun of how worried. Ijin's sister is about him. He points out that his own sister, Hoi Ijin, just whines, and nags him to do stuff for her all the time. Hoi Ijin then walks up and tells her brother she'll only feel bad for him when he actually gets his butt kicked. Meanwhile, Ijin is just frozen, totally horrified to see his sister all bruised up. But before we see what he does, the scene flashes back to earlier that morning when students were just getting to class. We see poor Yang Chan looking terrified as two guys use his head for target practice. Jae Hyung is all proud of himself for a direct hit, and starts bragging to his buddy about it. Hyuk Ijin gets annoyed and demands a kid nearby to give his eraser. The shy student hands it over, and Hyuk Ijin grabs it. He winds up and throws it with all his strength, nailing Young Chan right in the head. He does a little happy dance for landing a perfect shot. But Jae Hyung tries to downplay it, saying it was just luck. The two of them go back and forth, trying to one-up each other's headshot game. Jae Hyung decides to go again, swinging his arm like a maniac to chuck the eraser at poor Young Chan. But surprise Ijin steps in the way, and the eraser hits him in the side. Instead, the two bullies are pissed about being interrupted, and the eraser just drops to the floor. Ijin then just sits down in his seat next to a terrified Young Chan. The redhead is obviously getting ticked off, feeling like Ijin is starting to get on his nerves. Hyuk Ijin decides they need to go. Teach Ijin a lesson for getting involved, and the redhead is all for it. Meanwhile, Ijin just puts his bag down and asks Young Chan if he's okay. The poor guy mumbles that he's fine, but you can tell by how pale he is that he is definitely not fine. Young Chan just leans in towards Ijin to avoid looking at the bullies and asks if he wants to hang out after school. Ijin says he can't because he has to walk home with his sister. Shy Kid seems interested and asks if his sister transferred with him. Ijin says no, she was already going to school. In here, when Young Chan asks for her name, Ijin tells him it's Daeyoon. Young Chan is pretty shocked to hear that. Ijin totally notices his reaction and asks if he knows her at first. Young Chan doesn't want to say anything, but then he admits that Daeyoon is having a rough time at school. He explains that back in middle school she was super popular because she was smart and pretty. A lot of guys liked her. But then this blonde girl named Hwee Ijin got jealous and started bullying her. Ijin asks if anyone ever tried to stop it. Young Chan says that the bully Hwee Ijin has a brother named Gisu Kim, and he's one of the biggest troublemakers in the whole school. What's even worse, Daeyoon is in the same homeroom as Hwee Ijin. She gets bullied so bad that all the other students are surprised she even shows up to school anymore. Ijin connects the dots and figures out that Hwee Ijin started picking on his sister just because some guy liked her, but Yang Chan sadly explains that was just an excuse. Hwee Ijin was just looking for someone to bully. Ijin's mind flashes back a few days. His grandpa was hoping that Ijin would have an easy time fitting in at the new school. Her grandpa turned to Daeon and asked if she was doing okay in school too. Back then, sweet little Daeon promised her grandpa that everything was great, never letting on. That she was getting bullied every single day. Her grandpa praised her, saying Daeon is a great student and that her teachers always say good things about her. Back in the present, Ijin realizes his sister was just faking it, hiding everything so their grandpa wouldn't worry. Just then, one of the rowdy bullies kicks the door open, and the whole gang of them just strolls into the classroom. Hyuk Ijin immediately asks the gang what they're doing in their class. Jisoo Kim, one of the top dogs of the whole school, just says he's there to take care of something. Hyuk Ijin is surprised to see Jisoo and has no idea what to do. See, Hyuk Ijin is a total small fry. He can handle the other bullies, but he knows better than to mess with Jisoo Kim. Meanwhile, Jisoo's lackeys point out Ijin. When Jisoo sees him, he starts screaming at his guys, pissed that they got beat up by some scrawny little punk. He tells his lackeys to back off, and then flicks a finger at Ijin, telling him to come here. Ijin stands up right away, the redhead, and Hyuk Ijin are totally confused, wondering what Ijin did to get on Gosu's bad side. They're both thinking he's completely screwed now, but Ijin just stands there and asks if Gosu is the one in charge. The real big shot. Gosu just smirks, finding it funny that it took Ijin this long to figure out who runs the show. He turns to one of his lackeys and tells him to stop standing there like an idiot and do something. You can see the lackey is terrified. but he slowly starts walking towards Ijin. But before the fight can start, Daeon bursts into the room, totally out of breath. And that brings us back to the present, with Ijin staring at his beaten-up sister. Tears start rolling down Daeon's face as she apologizes to Ijin for getting him into this mess. Meanwhile, Hoijin scoffs at the tears and calls her a total drama queen. But Ijin tells his sister she did nothing wrong. Before she can say anything else, he just snaps. He slaps the lackey so hard that the guy hits the floor out cold. The other bullies, who've seen Ijin fight before, start shaking with one guy down. Ijin turns to his sister, says that these guys are the ones who should be saying sorry. The fatty runs at Ijin with his fist ready, but Ijin just pushes his arm away like it's nothing. He sees an opening at the guy's throat and hits him with a quick, brutal chop like a ninja. The bully starts coughing and choking before he just collapses, the last lucky shaking, like a leaf tries to throw a punch at Ijin. Ijin hits him with a nasty shot to the ribs and super fast sends him to the ground too. Meanwhile, Gisu's confidence is finally starting to lose. It's confidence watching Ijin take down his crew like they're a bunch of nobodies. Local wannabe bullies in the class just stand there with their eyes wide, completely blank. Even Hui, Ijin, and Chicken Shake are freaking out, totally losing their cool. After dropping the last two guys, Ijin turns to Gisu and tells him that his sister has been suffering because of these thugs, and he's not gonna let it slide. Gisu finally says something, smirking and admitting that Ijin isn't a pushover. Then, with a smirk, Gisu throws a super fast kick at Ijin's head, but Ijin blocks it easily, which leaves Gisu totally stunned. He didn't think Ijin would be that quick. So Gisu throws another kick with his other leg and Ijin blocks that one just as easily. Ijin grabs Jisu's leg, yanks him in close and punches him right in the face. The punch sends blood flying as Jisu hits the floor like a rag doll. His nose and mouth are bleeding, and he looks up in total horror at Ijin, who's standing over him like the freaking Death Reaper. Without even hesitating, Ijin kicks the bastard right in the face, and even more blood goes flying. The guy who is acting all tough and cocky is now on the ground, totally defeated and humiliated. The whole class goes dead silent. Everyone's eyes wide in shock as they watch Ijin take out one of the biggest bullies in a single move. The two beta bullies are just staring, with their jaws on the floor, unable to believe that Ijin just wrecked a major player like Jisu. So easily, the girls are just as freaked out, especially the blonde one. She's stunned, wondering if Ijin is really that strong. Ijin starts walking towards Hui. Ijin, who's terrified she's about to get smacked and get the same beatdown. But before he can do anything, Diane runs over and begs her brother to stop Ijin, reminds her that Hui, Ijin, and her crew have been messing with her for a long time, and that he knows they came after her yesterday too. Ryan's face just drops when she realizes he knows the truth, and she looks down without saying anything. Then it hits her that Ijin is doing all this for her. So she forces a smile and tells him she's fine, and that he should just stop. Her brother thinks about it for a second, but finally agrees and decides to walk her to her class as they leave. The whole room starts whispering, unable to believe that Gisu, the top dog, got taken down by one guy. Even the beta bullies have to admit that Ijin is hardcore, and they're super relieved they didn't try to fight him before. While everyone's talking, the blonde girl is just shaking a mix of scared and humiliated, not able to deal with the fact that they lost. Meanwhile, Ijin and Diane are walking together, and she's saying how shocked she is that he's so good at fighting. But then she starts saying sorry again. Ijin is confused and asks her what she's apologizing for. Diane explains that it's her fault he got pulled into all this drama. He feels bad about the fights he had to get into both yesterday and today. Ijin just gives her a warm smile and tells her not to apologize for anything. That's what family is for, protecting each other. He then starts explaining that where he used to live, it was every man for himself. People didn't care what happened to anyone else, as long as they were okay. But even those selfish people were different when it came to their own families. And that's when we get a flashback into a crazy battlefield with smoke and explosions. Everywhere you can hear guns and bombs going off all around. In the middle of all this chaos, we see a younger Ijin. He spots an enemy soldier trying desperately to save his own little daughter, using his body to shield her from a guy pointing a gun right at them. Even with all the violence, seeing that soldier risk his life for his kid really stuck with Ijin. It made him wonder what family really means and why it's such a big deal. Back in the present, Diane points out that he barely even remembers her. So why is he trying so hard to help? Ijin agrees that he doesn't remember much, but says that doesn't matter, they're still family. She just stands there quietly. And as his words sink in, she starts to get a little embarrassed. She quickly tells him she's fine, and he should get back to his own class. She says they're already at her classroom, gives him a quick wave goodbye, and disappears. Inside, leaving Ijin with a little smile back in his classroom. Everyone is still talking about Ijin, and he's feeling kind of awkward with all the attention the beta bullies give him. A thumbs up and ask him what they taught him overseas because he destroyed those noobs like they were nothing. They keep piling on the praise, but Ijin just sinks into his chair looking a little overwhelmed. Even his friend Young Chun chimes in and says he was awesome, which makes Ijin crack a small smile. Meanwhile, we cut to the defeated goons who are all feeling pretty stressed after getting embarrassed like that. Their boss is still super mad, complaining that there's something different about Ijin, that he doesn't fight like a normal third-rate thug. His sister tries to cheer him up, telling him to stop pouting, and saying it was just a fluke, she says. Ijin just caught them by surprise and that they should get him later, but the other bullies are quiet, because they now know that Ijin is a total powerhouse and not someone you mess with, but the blondie reminds him that he's just one guy, and they can't let some random dude beat them. Her brother finally tells her to shut up, saying that if she wants a fight so bad, she can go fight the guy herself. If it's so easy, of course, Hoijin doesn't like that, and snaps back that he shouldn't take it out on her just because some random handed him his butt on a platter. Her brother is totally furious. You can tell Hoijin's words really got to him. He's seething because, let's be real, she's telling the truth and it hurts. Eugene gives him one last glare, her eyes getting teary because she's so frustrated with how her brother is acting. She quietly turns around and slams the door on her way out. As she's stomping down the hall, Chicken Shake runs up to catch her. Meanwhile, the blondie is still absolutely fuming. She's super frustrated that all those bullies couldn't even take on one guy. She slams the classroom door open and storms in. When she sees Dae-hyun sitting there, she asks her if she's feeling lucky now that she has a brother. She points out how Dae-hyun can probably just waltz into school now without a worry, and run to her big bro. If anything goes wrong, Dae-hyun doesn't say anything back, which just pisses Hoi-jin off. Even more, she thinks Dae-hyun is giving her the cold shoulder now that she has her brother to protect her. Ijin grits her teeth and makes it clear she's not going to let Dae-hyun get away with anything just because she has a brother. As it starts to get dark, the students head home. We see our girl in the crowd looking kind of down. He's just thinking, remembering when her brother stood up for her and fought those thugs. She remembers him saying they were family, and wonders if that means she can finally stop. Worrying about being bullied at school, she starts thinking about how miserable things were with Hoi-jin. How she was always getting bossed around and had to do whatever she said. Like a faithful dog, every time she tried to stand up for herself, she just gets slapped. All of a sudden, her brother shows up behind her and asks if something wrong. She's totally startled, but he tells her he already called her name a few times, and she didn't answer. His sister quickly apologizes, saying she didn't hear him, and then asks if he was waiting for her. Again, he nods and says yeah, because he still doesn't know the way home. So they start walking home, together talking about getting some groceries since their grandpa is always starving when he gets home late as they're walking. That rowdy bitch is standing behind them. She looks completely furious and just can't stand seeing our girl smiling. This bitch is just waiting for the right moment to wipe that smile right off Dae-hyun's face. Next thing we know, two of them are shopping in a store. The girl is having a hard time deciding what to buy, and other people in the store are staring at them. All the girls in the store are staring at our guy, and Dae-hyun can't help but notice all the attention he's getting from the ladies. She knew he was popular at school, but apparently he stands out everywhere, just out of curiosity. Dae-hyun finally asks her brother if he ever had a girlfriend when he was living abroad. The question totally catches him off guard, and he looks like he's never even heard the word girlfriend before, seeing how confused he is. Dae-hyun explains she means like a girl he was dating. He just says he's never had one, which makes his sister say he should think about it, especially since girls are drawn to him like a magnet. He's quiet for a second, then says he's always been too busy for a girlfriend. Hyun gets it especially. Since he's been busy getting used to a new country, that's when he flips the question on her and asks if she's ever had a boyfriend. The question catches her by surprise and she quickly says she's never had one either. When he asks why, she just says she's been busy too. When they get home, we see their grandpa gave our guy a new Samsung Galaxy phone. He's a little bummed because he wanted an iPhone. Grandpa quickly schools him, saying iPhones have terrible battery life and that a Samsung is better, especially since every other kid has an iPhone. It's a funny little dig, like having a Samsung will make him unique. Dae-hyun, on the other hand, is super excited because she wanted a Galaxy phone and she can tell it's the newest one. Our guy starts messing with the phone and their grandpa tells them he already put his and Dahyun's numbers in it. Dahyun is surprised her grandpa did that himself, since she's usually the one who helps him with tech stuff. Grandpa quickly explains that the salesperson helped him out. He adds with a smile that he heard, "Young people love unboxing stuff themselves, so we hoped our guy wouldn't mind that he opened it to save the numbers." Ijin just says he's totally cool with it. Then Grandpa apologizes to Daehyun, saying the store only had one left so he couldn't get her one. Daehyun tells him it's no big deal. They all end up having a great dinner, just talking and enjoying being a family. Later that night, our guy is still messing with his new phone and is really starting to get into the whole Galaxy thing. He starts thinking that maybe Samsung phones aren't so bad and might even be better than iPhones. The scene then cuts to Major Kang, who's working on his computer when his phone rings. It's Ijin calling to tell him he has a new phone and a new number. The Major is a little surprised by this. The junior officer behind him even asks if Major Kang didn't already give Ijin a phone, and the Major says he did. That's when he gets tomato red with anger. He points out that he gave Ijin the most expensive iPhone they had, so he's pretty furious that Ijin already replaced it. The next morning, Ijin gets out of the shower and sees his sister rushing out the door in her uniform before she can leave. Ijin asks why she's taking off so early. She just says she's running late and bolts out of there. She also yells that dinner is all ready, and he just needs to put the dishes in the sink. As she's running down the street, she checks her phone and is relieved she's gonna make it on time. She was late because she'd made soup for their grandpa, but seeing him smile when he ate, it was totally worth it. She's just happy she could do something nice for him, but her happy moment gets cut short when someone kicks her hard in the ribs, knocking her to the ground. 3 girls in hoodies and masks are standing over her, hiding who they are. The one in front tells Daeyeon to watch where she's going and says she almost broke her ankle. It's obvious they're just trying to start a fight. They demand that Daeyeon apologize for what she supposedly did. The poor girl just quickly nods and says she's really sorry, but the rowdy leader isn't happy with that and slaps Daeyeon across the face, telling her to apologize like a whimpering dog. That's when one of the girls, the one with the ponytail, suggests they all go to karaoke to blow off some steam. Another girl agrees, saying they need to relax and have fun. The ponytail girl then crouches down to look Daehyun in the eye. With a smirk, she invites her to come with them to karaoke, saying they're gonna have a blast. As soon as Daehyun hears her voice, she knows it's Hwajin Kim and she's definitely here to make her life hell. Next thing she knows, they're at some sketchy karaoke place. The manager sees the shady-looking girls and gets a bad feeling a little later. The manager is nervously walking towards their room. He's mumbling to himself about how wild kids are now, and I wonders what kind of mess they made, because all he heard from their room was a bunch of screaming. The manager opens the door and finds Daehyun on the floor, obviously beaten up. Luckily, she's awake and slowly starts to get up. Her hands are shaking as she tries to pick up her stuff. The manager is totally confused by this and tries to call an ambulance, but Daehyun just says no and stumbles out the door. Meanwhile, back at school, the teacher is taking attendance and sees that Daehyun is gone. The other students say she's not there, and everyone is confused because Daehyun isn't the type to just skip school in the background. Hojin Kim has a smirk on her face, obviously happy about it. Chicken Shake leans over and asks her if she thinks Daehyun is okay. Hwijin just tells her not to freak out, reminding her that Daehyun being gone has nothing to do with them. Chicken Shake nervously agrees, just playing along like it's true and has nothing to do with them. Finally, the school day ends. As usual, our guy is waiting outside for his sister, but he can't find her anywhere in the crowd. The crowd starts to clear out, and soon it's almost empty, but his sister is still a no-show. He waits a little longer, then pulls out his phone to call her, thinking maybe she went home without him. Meanwhile, she's already home. Her phone is ringing off the hook from his calls, but she just ignores it. Eventually, he just heads home. He immediately sees her sneakers by the door. He takes off his bag, walks up to her room and knocks softly, asking if she's in there. She quickly answers and her brother Ijin is super relieved. She's actually home. He asks her what's up, mentioning he even tried calling her but she didn't pick up the phone. Daehyun says she's really sorry, explaining that she must have been asleep. Ijin immediately picks up on the weird vibe in her voice and asks if he can pop in for a second. Daehyun quickly makes up an excuse, telling him she's already in bed because she's feeling sick, worried. Ijin asks if it's anything serious. She assures him it's just a little fever, and that she'll be totally fine after some rest. Ijin tells her to call him if she needs anything, and starts to leave planning to go buy some medicine for her. But then he suddenly freezes at the door when he spots bloodstains on her sneakers. It doesn't take him long to figure out something bad must have happened, caused blood on your shoes is not exactly a normal sight. As soon as it clicks, he grabs the first aid kit and rushes into her room to take care of her injuries. She flinches as he starts bandaging her bruised face. It's clear Ijin still doesn't have the full picture. Daehan tells him she fell down the stairs while trying to dodge a bike, but Ijin points out that her injuries look way too severe for a simple accident, and asks if she's sure she doesn't want to go see a doctor. She hesitates for a second before insisting. She's totally okay. I mean, it makes sense why she wouldn't want to go to the hospital if she did. They'd know right away her bruises weren't from falling down any stairs. The scene then flashes back to Daehyun's past, and we're suddenly in the principal's office. Daehyun is explaining to the principal that she was beaten up by Haejin. Haejin, however, is flat out denying everything. The cops are involved too, and Daehyun keeps insisting that Haejin was the one who attacked her. She says that Haejin was wearing a mask and a hat, but she recognized her voice and is 100% positive it was her. Besides Hui, Ijin has a history of bullying her at school. But then Hui Ijin, with a smug little smirk, asks how Daehyun can blame her when she never even saw her face. The principal asks Daehyun if she saw the face of the person who hurt her. Daehyun says again that the attacker's face was covered, but she is absolutely sure it was Haejin at this point. Haejin's mother completely loses it. She angrily accuses Daehyun, kind of dragging the police into this and treating her daughter like a criminal over a bogus accusation. The principal tries to calm the mom down, but she's not having it and makes it clear she's not going to. Meanwhile, you can see Daehyun's confidence just crumbling as she realizes no one believes her, even though she knows it was Huijin. Even the police officers look doubtful. The mother demands that Daehyun apologize to her daughter right then and there, but our girl stands her ground, telling the woman that it really was her daughter who assaulted her. The arrogant mother gets even angrier at this and decides she's going to take it up with Daehyun's parents. She demands that Daehyun get her parents to the school immediately. This just completely breaks Daehyun's heart. Tears start streaming down her face and she can't stop them. All while the villain who hurt her just laughs and walks away without any consequences back in the present. She feels like she's trapped in the exact same situation. She feels like it's useless to speak up without any real proof. Is dead set on not upsetting her grandfather, who's always been such a great support for her. Suddenly, Ijin notices her tense look and puts a hand on her forehead, asking if she's really okay. The girl weakly replies that she's fine. Ijin points out that, while none of her bones seem to be broken, the bruises are pretty nasty and are going to hurt for a couple of days. She nods, surprised that he's actually really good at this stuff. She can see that the bandages are placed perfectly then. Her expression gets sad as she thinks about their grandfather. She's worried he'll get really upset about everything, especially since he has a weak heart. Ijin is pretty surprised to hear this, and she adds that their grandpa is on medication for his heart. Hearing this, Ijin promises he'll make sure their grandpa never finds out about all of this and tells her to just focus on getting some rest. As he starts to leave, she calls his name. She gives him a sweet smile and thanks him for everything. And Ijin smiles back at her just as warmly. But the second he's out of sight, her smile disappears. He starts wondering if she made the right call by keeping some of the details from him. She's thinking that there's not much a couple of teens like them can really do about the whole thing. As we all know, Ijin isn't your average teenager, and I wouldn't be surprised if he already has a pretty good idea who was behind his sister's injuries. Later, the scene cuts to a club where the music is blasting, and the place is packed right in the middle of the crowd. We see the head bully Gi-soo Kim. He looks seriously ticked off as he drinks and laughs with his crew. They're all talking trash about Ijin, wondering how one kid could have messed up everything for them. One of the thugs speaks up, reminding them that they lost. Because they underestimated Ijin, he insists they can totally take him out if they just plan it out first. Another goon agrees, saying there's no way they can just let him get away with it. A third guy chimes in that Ijin wouldn't stand a chance against all of them at once. Even with all their hype, their boss knows taking Ijin down is not going to be a walk in the park. He's still fuming from that embarrassing beatdown, but has no intention of letting it slide. He slams his glass down in frustration, but reluctantly agrees with his lackeys. He makes it clear that fighting one-on-one isn't their style, so they'll probably come up with a plan to jump him with overwhelming numbers. The lackeys all get these huge evil grins clearly. I'm excited about the idea this group of jerks might think they have it all figured out. But they're just a pack of hyenas waiting to get what's coming to them from Ijin just as they're scheming. Gisu's phone rings, the caller ID reads little bitch. It turns out to be his little sister. And it looks like even Gisu agrees with that contact name. Anyway, she immediately starts yelling at him, asking why he's just hanging out at the club. Gisu tells her to get to the point, or he's hanging up. The girl insists he owes her big time. Gisu has no idea what she's talking about. He then brings up how Dae-hyun got roughed up earlier in the day. She tells him they can't. Let the siblings get away with this, or they'll lose all their power at school. Her brother, looking a bit proud, tells her she did a good job. He then reveals that they're also in the middle of planning some payback for Ijin. Just then, someone walks into the club as the bullies turn to see who it is. They realize it's Ijin. He definitely looks like he's there to settle a score. Gisu is absolutely furious to see Ijin just casually strolling into his turf. But Ijin just keeps walking toward their table looking totally calm. Gisu then gets a little smug, thinking it's great they don't have to hunt Ijin down anymore for their revenge. But Ijin isn't there for a friendly chat. Without wasting a single second, he grabs one of the lackeys by the face and slams him hard against the edge of the table. Another lackey charges him, but Ijin's hand is a blur, and a single punch shatters all the guy's ribs. The bully leader and his crew can only grind their teeth as they watch their guys get taken down. The rest of the crew rushes at Ijin, but our guy stays as cool as a cucumber as they get close. He kicks one of them down effortlessly, like a total boss. Next, he grabs a guy with purple hair and smashes him down onto the table with a brutal thud. While the purple-haired guy is totally freaking out, Ijin isn't finished with him and just slams the dude against the wall like a rag doll. He then makes a fist and lands a massive punch right in the fatty's face. One of the thugs grabs a glass bottle to swing at Ijin, but our boy just casually smacks the bottle from his hand and follows it up with a brutal hit to his face, leaving the thug spitting up blood. Another bully tries to charge him from behind, but Ijin ducks, grabs his hand, gives it a painful twist, and then delivers a hard slap right across his face. Ijin shoves the thug aside and immediately grabs another lackey by the face. He smashes the guy's mug right into his knee, and you can hear a sickening crunch as the thug's nose breaks with all the thugs knocked out. Gisu is just standing there speechless, completely unable to process what just happened. All this time, his sister is still on the phone, and she starts asking what's going on, since she can hear all the chaos. Ijin turns to Gisu, and the look in his eyes is so cold it makes Gisu shiver. He asks Gisu if he needs a reminder because last time he checked, Ijin already told him to stay away from his sister Gisu. It's just mind-blown at how quickly the tables have turned. It's kind of ironic. They tried to gang up on Ijin, only to have their own gang get completely destroyed. Ijin fought like an absolute pro, and wiped the floor with all of them in just a few seconds. He keeps questioning Gisu, asking what his sister ever did to him. Gisu plays dumb like he has no idea what he's talking about, all while secretly reaching for a glass on the table. He throws the glass at Ijin with lightning speed, but Ijin just takes a casual step back, letting it shatter against the wall while he's just standing there unbothered. Gisu grabs a bottle and swings it at him. Our boy steps back again, dodging the hit, but when Gisu swings the bottle a second time, Ijin knocks it out of his hand and counters with a punch that sends the drink inside splattering everywhere. Gisu tries to throw a punch this time, but our guy hits him with another brutal smack to the bastard's face, making his nose bleed like a faucet. Gisu stumbles backward, gasping for air. After the blow, while Ijin stays perfectly cool and composed, not even breaking a sweat, Ijin then asks this bastard what kind of sick pleasure he gets from messing with a helpless girl in a last-ditch effort. Gisu grabs a bottle, smashes it, and tries to stab Ijin in the chest with the sharp end, but our boy doesn't even flinch. He just slaps Gisu's hand so hard that the broken bottle falls to the floor. Then he grabs Gisu by the throat and squeezes, making him struggle to breathe. Gisu's feet are scrambling as he struggles, and Ijin forcefully slams him to the ground. Bastard writhes and squirms, desperately trying to break Ijin's iron grip, but our guy isn't letting up. His hand is pressed firmly on Gisu's throat, making sure the once cocky bully knows exactly who's in charge now. Ijin then leans in and asks Gisu what he should do with him. Gisu, who's barely conscious after that beatdown, can't even manage to answer. Ijin gives him one final warning, making it clear this is the absolute last time he'll let him off. Easy, he warns him to stay away from his sister. And to keep Huijin Gisu's sister on a leash too, he stresses that if he even hears a rumor about Gisu or Huijin bothering his sister again, he'll be back to finish what he started to really drive the point home. Ijin tightens his grip on the bastard's throat, pushing him to the edge of passing out the bully, now totally desperate, starts squirming and apologizing over and over after that. Ijin finally lets go, leaving Gisu on the floor gasping for air and coughing violently as he walks away. As Ijin heads out of the club, the staff inside just trade nervous. He looks not sure what they just witnessed. Meanwhile, Huijin and her friend, Chicken Shake, are walking down the street. Huijin gets a really bad feeling and starts to worry that her brother might be in trouble. Right when they get to the club, they hear footsteps coming up the stairs, and there's Ijin just casually walking away. Hoi! Ijin is totally thrown and has no idea what to do. She yells for Ijin to stop, probably thinking she can act all cool, since nobody can prove she was behind what happened today. But Ijin doesn't even break his stride now. Hoi! Ijin's getting seriously freaked out. She starts backing up, but ends up tripping and landing hard on her butt. She's rubbing her shoulder. Ijin's phone goes off. He glances at it. It's his grandpa calling after a short call. He just turns and heads home without another word, leaving everyone behind wondering what's going on in his head. When Hoi Ijin gets to the club room, it's a total disaster. Her brother and his crew are all beat up. She immediately lays into him, asking how he let Ijin trash him again, but her brother's too worn out to fight back. He just cuts her off and tells her to stay away from Daehyun from now on. Hi Ijin, not getting how serious this is, keeps arguing, asking what he's even talking about. That's when her brother, looking totally done, finally snaps. He grinds his teeth and screams at her to leave our boy's sister the hell alone. But Hoi Ijin doesn't let up yelling back and asking why he's so scared of that bastard. That's the final straw. Her brother's eyes go wild with fury. He tells her straight up that if she doesn't back off from Daehyun, he'll personally mess her up, man. This family has a messed up way of handling things. It's crazy how they talk about hurting each other so casually. Hoi Ijin is pretty rattled by her brother's threat and starts to cry. We cut back to our boy who meets up with his grandpa again. They find a bench in the park to sit on first thing. Grandpa says sorry for dragging our boy away from his friends, but he says it's no big deal. The old man then looks pretty down, bringing up how Daehyun got hurt, and that our boy was the one who patched her up. Our boy says, yeah, and the grandpa explains her injuries are bad, but she won't go to the hospital. He talks about how hard it was to raise Daehyun alone. He admits he never really knew how to take care of a little girl, and was always working just to keep food on the table. And he's just so thankful she's grown up so well, mostly by herself. Looking back on it all, Grandpa feels like Daehyun gave him way more than he ever gave her. He lost it all in that accident, and after the plane crash took everything, Daehyun was the only reason he kept going. It kills him to see her hurting like this, and not even telling him why he wonders if she thinks he's just too old to get it. He mentions how people say kids grow apart from their parents as they get older, so it must be even tougher for her to open up to her old grandpa. But our boy jumps in and tells the old man he's totally overthinking it. He points out that it's obvious how much Grandpa loves Daehyun, and he's positive she loves him back just as much. He tells Grandpa to stop worrying, and promises to look after her at school. Hearing that, the old man finally looks a bit relieved, genuinely happy that Daehyun has someone like a brother looking out for her. The scene switches over to the Omnia Medical Examination Center inside. We see Gisu, all patched up from his injuries, is getting chewed out by his father, who's super disappointed in him. His dad doesn't mince words, telling GISU he deserved everything he got. As he says, play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Mom, who's a real piece of work, starts screaming at her husband. She can't believe their son is in the hospital, and that's all he has to say. She tells him to go find the brute who did this and yell at him instead. She also points out that the same brute busted Huijin's arm too, honestly. It's a real mess. Hui Ijin is a bitch, to the point that she even pinned the blame of her own mishap on our boy. We all know that she tripped and banged up her shoulder, but instead of taking responsibility, she's blaming him for everything. The angry father finally calms down and lets out a deep sigh. The concerned mother tells her son to just focus on resting and recovering as they start to leave. The mother grumbles about making the kid who hurt their son pay if she ever gets her hands on him once they're gone. ISU finally asks his sister why she had to tell their parents everything. He explains that by doing so, she's just made things worse for him. He feels humiliated that people will think he ran to their parents, like a whining brat, after getting beaten up sister, then asks how she was supposed to hide the fact that her brother was in the hospital and that her arm was broken. Jisoo gets pretty ticked off and demands to know if Ijin was the one who did this to her arm. She remembers how she tripped and fell, but she doesn't mention that to him. Instead, she just says that Ijin was responsible. It's messed up how she's shifting the blame so shamelessly. She then quickly stands up and tells him to just stay here and get better. She says she'll make sure they realize once and for all who they're dealing with. Jisoo sits there unsure if they should mess with our boy again. Meanwhile, we're back with their parents. The woman reveals that she's just spoken to Mr. Cha, but her husband asks why she's complicating things and tells her to let the school handle it. The woman responds that it's Saturday already and she doesn't want to sit back and twiddle her thumbs, waiting for them. He starts yelling, pointing out that the school won't deliver real justice for what was done to their kids, and they'll likely only settle for a suspension or expulsion at best. The husband continues to argue, saying she has no business going to Mr. Cha to handle this personally. The woman reveals that she already knows Mr. Cha, and that he's been handling his dirty work for years. Meanwhile, Hui Ijin is eavesdropping and feeling pretty smug about her mother contacting Mr. Cha. She knows that Mr. Cha is the scary gangster who works for her father, and she's sure this will put an end to those troublemakers once and for all. The scene shifts to a rundown place where a man is fidgeting with his lighter clearly on edge. Two goons walk by looking pretty disappointed. They grumble about being ordered by their boss to handle some teenage drama, and none of them are thrilled about it. Even the boss himself isn't thrilled about dealing with this kid's squabble. But hey, a job's a job, even if it means wading through a mess of teenage nonsense. The scene flashes back to a time where a luxury Mercedes is zooming down the road inside the car. Mr. Cha, the mafia boss, takes a call from the woman. She fills him in on how her daughter's hand got fractured and her son got beaten up by some teenager. She's insisting that he needs to handle it. Cutting back to the present, Mr. Cha is puffing out smoke from his cigarette, clearly fuming. He's beyond frustrated that he has to deal with this kind of nonsense as well. The scene transitions back to the quarters where our boy is sitting before his computer, still lost in thought about his encounter with the GISU. He's wondering if these guys are really going to let it go. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. He hears his grandpa arguing with someone at the door. It turns out that the people at their doorstep want to see Ijin. The intimidating man outside claims they just want to talk to Ijin for a bit. Grandpa, concerned about the late-hour questions, what could be so urgent, our boy steps out of his room, telling his grandpa that he'll be back soon, after he hears what they want despite Grandpa's reluctance, and even his sister's protests. Ijin flashes a pleasant smile. He reassures them that he knows these guys, and that it's just a quick chat, nothing to worry about. With that, our boy leaves his concerned grandpa behind the goons, take him to an abandoned construction site, and he wonders who they might be taking him to meet. When they finally arrive, the lackeys report to their boss that they've brought the guy in question. The boss remains silent, puffing on his cigarette. The bald lackey reveals that the kid caught on quickly, didn't make a fuss, and just came along the boss a bit surprised and pleased. Decides to make it quick. He snaps his fingers, and the lackeys immediately grab their iron bats. One lucky tells his friend to hold our boy's arm, as he'll be the one to dish out the beating. Meanwhile, the boss sighs and decides to text the mother, letting her know that he's taking care of the job, while the boss scrolls through his phone looking for that mother's number. The lackeys ask him why our boy had to mess with the kids of Kim family. As soon as our boy hears the mention of kids, he realizes this must be about Gisu Kim. The boss, feeling frustrated and annoyed, pauses his scrolling, deciding he shouldn't call her while our boy is present. However, he looks over at our boy and is intrigued by how unfazed and emotionless he appears. Just as the lackeys charge at him, Ijin suddenly uses his ninja-like speed. He grabs the bald lackey's hand before he can swing at him and pushes the man toward him, delivering a brutal shoulder smash right to the lackey's face. The boss watches this with his wide-eyed eyes. He witnesses this flawless execution of the move. Meanwhile, the other lucky bat in hand swings at our boy. He ducks, letting the bat swoosh harmlessly over his head, but the lucky tries another swing. But our boy charges at the bat as if it's no big deal, leaving the mafia boss utterly bewildered. Lightning speed. Our boy locks the baseball bat in his arm and delivers a brutal punch right under the lucky's chin. Not stopping there, he follows up with a devastating blow to the lucky's chest. Then, with a fierce grip, he grabs the lackey by the neck and throws him down onto the bricks below. The boss watches in shock, clearly impressed and flabbergasted by the sheer skill and audacity of our boy's moves. The bald Lucky grabs our boy from behind, threatening him with death, but our boy quickly jabs his shoulder into the Lucky's ribs and then delivers a solid shoulder smash to his face. Sending him crashing to the ground, Mr. Cha realizes that this kid is no average teenager. Because his combat skills are exceptional, he finally decides to step in himself. As he strolls forward, he scratches his head, snickering and commenting that he never thought he'd be fighting teenagers at his age. Meanwhile, our boy can tell that even though this man is a mafia boss, he still is a weak sauce, because my guy can clearly spot all of the weak spots of this man as the boss swings a powerful fist at him. Ijin effortlessly sidesteps it. The boss then starts a barrage of punches, but our boy dodges each one with ease, making it look like a walk in the park. As they continue their back and forth, our boy quickly sidesteps, but another punch comes straight at him. He blocks the hit, though the heavy force makes him skid backward. The mafia boss sneers, impressed that he managed to block that one as well. Meanwhile, Ijin checks his wrist where he took the punch, and his hand winces from the aching pain. He realizes that the mafia boss predicted his movements and delivered the punch with precision. On the other hand, the mafia boss's curiosity has finally peaked, and he asks Ijin who he really is. Ijin casually replies that he's just a high school student. The boss isn't buying it in his mind, he figures. This kid must have some serious skill and experience to fight like this. Ijin takes his stance with a grin. The boss says he's up for sparring further, and balls up his fist to deliver a blow to our boy. Our boy quickly deflects an H-in-ace incoming punch and tries to throw one of his own, but the mafia boss sidesteps it effortlessly. The boss then attempts to attack, but our boy grabs his hand and swings a punch towards his gut. The mafia boss reacts again, causing our boy to end up landing a hit right to his face instead. Mr. Cha is absolutely annoyed after taking that hit right over his face and tries to swing another punch at our boy. Once again, our boy deflects the attack and, locking eyes with his opponent, delivers a brutal blow to his face. He follows this up with a series of powerful punches, knocking Mr. Cha to the ground, leaving him feeling utterly humiliated by a teenager. It's surprising to see a mafia boss who relies more on his fists than on guns anyway. Once Mr. Cha is defeated, he grins, noticing that our boy doesn't seem rattled at all by the fight. He doesn't know where this kid came from, but he's sure that the Kim family definitely messed with the wrong person. The scene transitions to this agency known as National Assembly member Im-bae Kim inside the building. Two guards are stationed outside an office. Inside the office, we see Mrs. Kim. And Mr. Kim, the woman asks her husband why Mr. Cha hasn't responded yet. She is growing impatient with every passing second, tells him to call Mr. Cha. Mr. Kim responds that she should just wait, as Mr. Cha will call back once he is done. Dealing with our boy, on the other hand, we also see their daughter, who lets out a sigh, and just then the telephone begins to beep. The impatient lady quickly tells her husband to put the call on speaker so she can hear the news herself. Mr. Kim begins by apologizing to Mr. Cha, saying he's sorry for the ridiculous favor his wife asked him to fulfill. But the women, however, continue to argue loudly, insisting that their kids were attacked. So she doesn't understand how it can be called ridiculous to everyone's surprise. Mr. Cha says that he's the one who should apologize. Mr. Kim asks for an explanation, and Mr. Cha reveals that it seems their children have meddled with the wrong person, because Cha himself also had been defeated by our boy. This news rattles Mr. Kim to the core. As far as he knows, Mr. Cha is the best enforcer in the business, and it's unfathomable that he lost to a high school kid just then. The office door starts rattling as someone tries to force it open. Both Mr. and Mrs. Kim look anxiously at the door. When it finally creaks open, they see soldiers sprawled on the ground, leaving the husband and wife. Utterly anxious and alarmed, even their bratty daughter jumps out of her seat when they see Ijin strolling into the room. The door behind him slammed shut, leaving their unconscious bodyguards on the other side. Mr. Cha, still on the phone, quickly realizes that Ijin has made it into their place. He leans back, letting out a defeated sigh. He's still trying to wrap his head around the fact that he got beaten by a single high school kid. He's now anxious about how to deal with this mess inside the room. Hui Ijin jumps up from her seat as Mrs. Kim starts yelling at Ijin, demanding to know he's the kid who beat up her children on the other side. The man at the desk demands to know how Ijin managed to get into his office. That is when this stupid woman begins to grit her teeth in frustration because she is pissed that her husband is not overreacting like her. The husband remains calm and composed and asks again more insistently how Ijin got past the security. Ijin just shrugs and casually replies that he simply passed the guards blocking the entrance. Mr. Kim is even more shocked and confused, not understanding how Ijin managed to beat Mr. Cha and all the security guards. What bothers him even more is how Ijin even found out that he's living here. That shithead woman starts yelling again, telling Ijin to stop. Giving them attitude, she quickly begins dialing the emergency hotline to report Ijin for assaulting her kids and breaking into the office. Meanwhile, Hui Jin feels a sense of pride in her mother's actions. She believes that involving the police is a good move, thinking that even if Ijin has impressive fighting skills, the law will take care of him. The arrogant mother tries to intimidate Ijin with her threats, claiming she'll call the police or even the district attorney, because she thinks Ijin has no idea who he's dealing with. Ijin, however, remains calm and responds that he has a pretty good idea. He points out that her husband is a second-term assembly member currently running for office. The woman scoffs, asking Ijin, if he knows so much about their status, then why did he assault her kids? On the other hand, Huijin smugly sneers, feeling satisfied that they've cornered Ijin, and faintly tells him that it's game over. The authorities pick up the call, and the lady starts yelling into the phone, demanding that the officers reach Kim's office right away. But before she can say anything more, she falls silent when she hears something unexpected. Apparently, Ijin plays the full footage of the karaoke room where Huijin and her lackeys assaulted her sister. The undeniable evidence leaves Huijin speechless, her eyes widening in shock as if they might pop out of their sockets. Mr. Kim stays silent, feeling utterly devastated. The screams of Daehyun, begging for forgiveness, echo through the room as the trashy ladies continue to beat her to a pulp. Seeing the concrete evidence, Mrs. Kim's jaw drops. She quickly hangs up the hotline, saying she'll call them back later. On the other hand, Hui Ijin starts yelling at Ijin, demanding to know how he got those files. Ijin remains silent for a moment, and then the scene flashes. Back to the outside of the Kim's residence inside one of the rooms. Ijin is seen sneaking around the house. He opens a laptop and copies all of the data onto a pen drive in the present. Mr. Kim grits his teeth in frustration, feeling that his kids are a total disappointment. But Hui Jin quickly tries to reassure her father, explaining that she had a good reason for everything. Mr. Kim, however, angrily tells her to shut up Ijin, then reveals that he also has files involving Gisu Kim. He explains to the Kims that their children always save videos of their conquests. He states that he has dozens of clips showing their violent behavior, beating up kids at school, extorting money and valuables from their victims, and even the latest clip of his sister being assaulted by a group of girls at karaoke. Hui Ijin is shaking like a leaf with all these truth bombs exploding around her, but her mother quickly jumps in to defend her daughter, claiming that our boy is just trying to threaten them and that he won't get away with it. But Ijin reminds her that he didn't start this mess, and what he's doing now is hardly a threat compared to hiring a bunch of gangsters to attack him, and makes it clear that he has recorded all of it too. The father facepalms in utter disappointment and asks our boy if he did all this just because his kids assaulted his sister first. Ijin responds that as a parent, they have the right to take their children's side at all costs. So as a brother, he will do whatever it takes to protect his sister as well. The man understands where he's coming from and points out that they'll cover her treatment and offer a hefty settlement to make amends. But our boy makes it clear that this isn't necessary. The father is puzzled and asks what he means by that. He then inquires if Ijin would like his kids to apologize to his sister. Hearing her father, Ijin grits her teeth and thinks to herself that she'd rather bite her tongue and bleed to death than apologize. On the other hand, our boy makes it clear that an apology won't undo the time his sister spent in fear and pain. So he insists that if they really want to compensate him, he wants his sister to never have to see Jisoo or Hai Ijin. Kim again, this demand rattles Hui Ijin's nerves, but her father quickly agrees, stating that he'll have his kids transfer schools or perhaps even send them abroad to study naturally. The mother and daughter let out a piercing scream in protest, but the father quickly shuts them down and turns his attention back to our boy, asking if this would be enough to satisfy him. Our boy states that he wants them gone from the school starting tomorrow. In response, the father says he'll inform the school, and once that's settled, Huijin begins to cry, and her tears to flow out involuntarily. Just as our boy starts to leave, the father quickly stops him and reminds him that since he agreed to the demands, he'd like our boy to delete all of the videos. He found our boy shoots the old man, a death glare, and the father can tell from the intensity of his eyes that this kind of deadly glare doesn't belong to a high schooler Ijin. Makes it clear that he's not a fool, and then begins to walk away, slam the office door behind him with a resounding thud once outside. He finally heads home. His grandpa rushes to open the door and asks if he's okay. While Daeyoon is seen crying in the background, Ijin is startled to see them so worried about him, but he smiles and reassures them that no one heard. As he begins to enter the house, the old man points out that the people they encountered seemed dangerous. Ijin replies that they just stopped by to talk, nothing more. The sister then mentions that something about those people didn't feel right and that she and Grandpa were very worried. Ijin quickly tells her not to worry about anything other than getting better. Ijin then hints to his sister that from now on she'll never have to walk down the stairs again, because he's taking care of it. Of course, this doesn't make much sense to her at the moment, but she'll likely figure out what he meant. Soon enough the next morning, they head to the school. Once inside, they part ways to go to their respective classes. As Daeyoon enters her classroom, she tries to avoid making eye contact with Hui Ijin. However, her steps falter when she hears students talking about how Hui Ijin won't be coming to school anymore. The entire class buzzes with curiosity about what happened, and one of the girls explains that Hui Jin and her brother are both going to study abroad. This news hits Daeyoon like a thunderbolt out of blue, because her biggest obstacle is finally quitting school. The words Ijin had said about taking care of the stairs. She had fallen down replay in her mind. She quickly realizes that he must have known about Huijin's transfer all along. Daeyoon rushes out of the classroom in order to talk to him about this when she finds him and calls out to him. He turns around, but as soon as she tries to speak, she's at a loss for words and remains silent. Ijin simply smiles and says, "See you later," leaving Daeyeon to tear up. She manages to reciprocate with a soft "see you later" before she breaks down her emotions, overwhelming her a while. Later, we find ourselves in an apartment where a blonde girl is asking her friends if it's true that Huijin is moving overseas. One of the other girls confirms that it's true, saying she was shocked when she first heard, but has no idea why they're leaving suddenly. As Hai Ijin never mentioned anything about moving abroad, the blonde girl then turns to Chicken Shake, who is sitting silently and seems too preoccupied with herself to respond. One of the girls snaps her out of her reverie and asks if she has nothing to say about it. This rattles the timid girl to her core, and the blonde girl asks her directly if Hui Ijin is really moving overseas, figuring that since they're in the same class, Chicken Shake might know more about it. Timidly and nervously, girl confirms that it's true, and that their teacher announced it to the class earlier. The blonde girl then asks if she tried reaching Huijin directly. Chicken Shake admits she did, but Huijin didn't pick up the call. Hearing this, all the girls start to believe it might be true. Meanwhile, Chicken Shake nervously checks her phone, biting her nails in anxiety. The last message she got from Hui Ijin was that her mother was going to take care of our boy. And ever since, Chicken Shake has been freaking out, wondering if Hui Ijin's sudden move has anything to do with him just then. Hui Ijin herself arrives in the room looking absolutely furious. The girls are shocked to see her, and Hui Ijin just takes a seat on the sofa, grumbling about how she barely managed to sneak out of the house. The girls ask Hai Ijin if she's really moving overseas. Frustrated, Hai Ijin grabs her head and says it just happened, but she explains she'll be back after 1 semester. We then flash back into the past where her dad told her to spend a semester abroad, promising he'd sort everything out by the time she gets back, because he doesn't want those videos going public either. She keeps this part to herself though, and the other girls just laugh and tease her, saying she's going to enjoy her vacation. The blonde sneers, clearly annoyed by their attitude. Another girl asks why the sudden move, and if Gisu is going too. Hui Ijin simply says it's a family matter and she doesn't need to go into details. The redhead girl then asks about Daeyoon and her brother, curious about how things went, and if Gisu managed to beat our boy or not. Hojin tells them not to ask, insisting that Gisu probably has handled the situation already. However, we all know that she just doesn't want to admit that Brother and his lackeys got thoroughly defeated by our boy, as it would be too humiliating. She grows even more agitated, thinking about how pleased Dae-yoon will be to see her leaving the school. This irritation sparks an idea in her mind, and she decides to mess with Dae-yoon one last time, asking her friends to help with her, plan her. Friends question whether it's really necessary. And even Chicken Shake jumps in shock and expresses her reluctance. But Huijin insists they should consider how cocky Daeon will be without anyone to bully her. She plans to deal with Daeon before she leaves Korea, wanting to make sure she gets her revenge. Chicken Shake grows increasingly anxious and terrified as Huijin continues to reveal her twisted plan. Huijin gets cocky, boasting that Daeon's grandpa's a security guard somewhere, and she plans to have her mom get him fired. She believes this will teach Dae-yoon a lesson not to mess with anyone from the Kim family. This is seriously messed up. Dae-yoon is just an innocent girl, and Hae-jin's plotting is enough to make anyone sick. But before this trash woman can act on her disturbing thoughts, her face goes pale. When she sees a figure standing before her cloaked in a hoodie with a mask over their face, it doesn't take long for her to recognize that it must be Ijin. However, Ijin pulls a classic Uno card move and asks her who. Ijin is questioning how she can be so sure when he's wearing a mask and she can't see his face. He casually explains that he's just here to check if everyone's having a good time and is quite pleased to see that everyone from the karaoke room video is present. One of the girls starts trembling and asks what he's talking about. That's when the boy reminds them he's referring to the place where they all filmed his sister getting beaten up. Hoojin's face turns ashen as she realizes he might have been there waiting all along just to mess with her. Chicken Shake is visibly sweating and trembling, clearly aware of what might come next. The other two girls just sit there, utterly silent. The boy starts to shut the door, asking why no one's singing, since he thought everyone here loved to scream along to loud music with that. He slams the door shut, leaving us with no clue about what he might do next. The scene takes us to the hospital where the Kim family is gathered. The father in by Kim is clearly annoyed, asking where Huijin went. Her brother explains that she stepped out to say goodbye to her friends. In-bae's irritation grows as he asks why she left when she was supposed to stay put. Until they had everything sorted out just then, a guy bursts into the room, quickly turning on the TV and telling his master he needs to see what's going on the screen. It's clear that our boy has already made the videos of what Huijin did go viral. The footage is spreading fast, and the situation is quickly becoming a public spectacle. The entire Kim family falls silent. As they watch the news, the reporter continues to drop bombshells, revealing that there are dozens of violent videos circulating with many more incidents. Likely unrecorded civic groups and politicians are now proposing a special bill to bring the culprits to justice. ISU starts to lose his composure, and the reporter adds that the nation is especially appalled by the revelation that the culprits are the children of candidate in by Kim. It's clear that the father is in deep trouble, and it's all thanks to his outrageous wife who pushed everything to this point, given Hae-jin's plan to make our grandpa jobless. Seems they're getting exactly what they deserve. We cut back to our boy being grilled by Mr. Cha, who demands to know why he went ahead with his plan, when he had already come to terms with the Kim family. Our boy's mind flashes back to the past, where we find him learning all about the Kim family's deep political connections. He reveals that it was highly unlikely everything he would have gone smoothly, so he did what he felt had to be done in the present. He admits he did not honor the agreement they had. Mr. Cha questions whether he really thinks the Kim family would just let him walk away. Our boy confidently asserts that he's probably the last thing on their minds right now. Seems our boy might be right. The reporter continues to drop more bombshells, revealing recent evidence of by Kim's involvement in money laundering, bribery, and election fraud. The evidence is so damning that even his fellow party members are calling for a strict investigation, with everyone trying to cut ties to avoid any damage to their party. As soon as Mr. Kim hears this, he slumps down on the bed like a lifeless doll. Back with Mr. Cha. He seems to suspect that our boy has dug up some data about his past as well, and Cha does not want to get exposed to the law just like the Kim family. So he quickly asks who our MC really is. Our boy responds, simply saying, he's just an average teenager. Mr. Cha smirks at this ridiculous remark, noting that nothing about Ijin is average. The scene shifts to the classroom where the girls are feeling anxious and blushing. As they see Ijin, they whisper among themselves, trying to muster the courage to approach him and ask him something, but everyone remains too shy to make a move. As Ijin sits lost in thought, his phone rings. It's Daeyeon letting him know that she can walk home by herself today, and telling him to take a break and hang out with his friends. Ijin is puzzled by the concept of hanging out and wonders how to go about it just then. One of his friends, Yang Chan, pops up and greets him as Yang Chan sits down, asks if he is busy today. Our boy remains silent, which prompts Yang Chan to remember that Ijin always walks his little sister home, so he must be busy after school, but not surprisingly, Ijin tells his friend that he's actually free. Today, Yang Chan's face lights up with happiness, and they plan to hang out after school, however. Yang Chan's enthusiasm quickly fades when he hears an unpleasant voice as the scene zooms out. We see these two beta bullies of the class step forward. They both reveal that they've heard the news and know that Ijin is the reason Gisu Kim is moving abroad. Young Chan is totally shocked by the news, and the other students, lounging around, are equally caught off guard. The bullies spill the beans that even though Gisu and his sister were all set to move abroad, they're stuck now because their whole family's in hot water after the info leak. Our boy jumps in to set things straight, telling the bullies they've got it all wrong. Jae-hyung chimes in saying, "There's no need for modesty, because everyone knows our boy trashed Gisu and his crew at their hideout a couple of days ago." Hyuk Ejin backs him up, explaining that Ejin took them all out by himself, and now everyone's saying Gisu is too embarrassed to show his face at school. He's itching to hear just how badly our boy must have beaten Gisu to make him leave the country altogether. Hong-chan is finally convinced that Ejin is actually a skilled fighter, and that his performance that day wasn't just luck. Hyuk Ejin leans in and says now that they won't have to deal with that jerk anymore, he's itching to throw a party, so he invites our boy to celebrate after school today. Jae-hyung agrees, adding that they've been in the class for days, without really spending time together, and he suggests they show our boy around the area, but our guy flatly turns them down, saying he already has plans for today. Naturally, the bullies are puzzled and ask what he's up to with a pleasant smile. Ejin replies that he's planning to hang out with Young Chan. That's when Jae-hyung starts creeping in, with his disgusting grin leaning toward Young Chan and saying he'll join their hangout. Hyuk Ejin also leans closer to the terrified guy and expresses his desire to join in as well after forcefully making Young Chan agree to start to walk away, saying they'll meet up later. Our boy quickly asks his friend if he really wants to let these goons join in, and the poor guy stutters a positive response with a pale face. The teacher finally arrives in the classroom, and she's brought along 2 transfer students. One of them is a plain-looking, but the real standout is a stunning beauty with striking black hair. Young Chan's eyes immediately light up at the sight of her, and our boy quickly asks if he knows who they are. Young Chan explains that everyone knows this girl. She's Yeon Ha-sin, and her grandpa owns SW Corporation, the biggest company in Korea. The guy next to her is SEO Ju Ko, and there are rumors that he's been with her since they were kids, and is seen as her associate and bodyguard. The teacher notes that since everyone's familiar with these two, she won't waste time on introductions. She reveals that both of them have been studying in the US for the past 2 years, and will be joining the class starting today. The beta lackeys don't seem too thrilled about these two. Newcomers in the classroom with just Ejin before their chances to rule the classroom were slim to none. But now with these two around, they're not so sure they can even think about bullying anyone. Meanwhile, Yang Chan was curious about the 2 extra desks in the class, but it's clear now who they're for. He can't help but, I think Yana looks even more stunning than he remembered even the students in the class. Can't keep their eyes off her. As Seok-ju behind, the lady walks forward, he could not help but notice our boy, and their eyes lock for a moment. Yana too can't resist, but glances at him while she's walking past him once both of the newcomers take their seats. Seok-ju tells Yona that our boy wasn't in the evaluation report he received a week ago, and he wants to double-check. Yona is intrigued and glances at our boy once more, and we can tell she is clearly curious about him. Our boy notices Yona glancing at him, and when he looks back, he finds her smiling. However, he just turns his gaze away again, which seems to irritate her, since she didn't get a reciprocating smile. Meanwhile, Young Chan continues their conversation, asks if he has any particular place he wants to go. Ejin says he's okay with anywhere, so Young Chan suggests hitting the game room. Well, it seems like the word gaming room triggers some memories for our boy while his friends explain that it's nearby and just upgraded their PCs. That's when we flash back to the past, where we hear the authoritative tone of a senior, telling a group of soldiers that they will begin today's portion of their practical life training program. he explains that there is one thing every Korean teenager must know. That's the gaming room. This is the first time our boy has heard about the gaming room. The senior further explains that gaming rooms offer personal computers for a fee, and both students and adults can use them. Curious, our boy asks what people do there. The senior explains that while some users browse the internet or watch X-rated videos, most people are there to play games. For the average high school student, over 90% are playing some kind of computer game. The senior then introduces some of the most common games. First up is Legends of League, followed by Battle Royale back in the present. Our boy reflects on how he can finally make use of the majors. Intel, meanwhile, Young Chan, adds that they'll also grab some ramen at the game room and maybe check out Koinsa afterward. It seems like Koinsa is yet another term our boy picked up during his military days while learning about practical life. The senior explains to him that high schoolers frequently visit coin karaoke, also known as koinka. These establishments basically allow for sing-alongs with just a few coins. Major Kang tells our boy that he should prepare a few songs to sing in case he ends up going to one, and promises to send him a list of popular songs for kids his age. They have to learn as our guy starts brainstorming ideas and trying to remember some songs. His friend sits nervously nearby, wondering why Ijin suddenly looks so serious once the bell rings. The students head out for the day, and that's when we see this hottie once again. And as usual, she is with her lackey. Apparently they're discussing our boy and discover that he transferred just a few days ago, is 18 years old, and happens to be Dae-yoon-yu's older brother. Yeona is surprised to learn that Dae-yoon has a brother because she thought her only family was her grandpa. Seokko agrees and explains that Dae-yoon has been living with her paternal grandfather since her parents and brother died in a plane crash. Yeona then asks how she still has a brother. Seokchuko replies that it's hard to believe, but apparently, her deceased brother has suddenly come back to life just before they transferred to school. He suggests they should dig a little deeper into our boy's past. Meanwhile, it's gotten pretty late already, and we find our boy strolling, alone. His phone keeps ringing with notifications from his friends, showing they had a blast at the gaming center. Flashback to the gaming club where we see Hyuk Jin, our boy Lee Jae-hyung, and Young Chan all hanging out. Everyone is amazed by how Young Chan carried them through the game. Lee Jae-hyung even asks about his rank, guessing it. Must be Diamond or Master. Their jaws drop when Young Chan timidly reveals that he's actually at Challenger rank from that moment. Their attitude toward Young Chan shifts completely in the present moment. Even our boy finds this sudden change, odd as they keep chatting excitedly about Young Chan's impressive rank. As he's looking at his phone, his sister arrives. He quickly asks her what she's doing here. She explains that they ran out of garbage bags at home. So she went to get some, and she also picked up a few snacks our boy offers to carry the bags. But his sweet sister insists it's not necessary. She then asks if he was hanging out with his friends, and he confirms that he was. She feels a warm sense of relief, glad to see that he's made friends, and that people aren't avoiding him. Because of the fight, when she asks where he went, he bluntly replies that he went to the game room. Well, it seems like this isn't exactly what she expected to hear, as she thought he might have developed different interests after living overseas for so long, curious about her own experiences at school. He asks how things have been for her. She pauses for a moment before responding. That school hasn't been this fun in years. She then asks if he also had something to eat. He nods, saying they had a blast at the game room where every kind of snack was available. He then asks her about her plans. She mentions that she's waiting for Grandpa to come home so they can eat together. Our boy then asks if he can join them, which confuses her since she thought he'd already eaten. He awkwardly admits that he's still a bit hungry. We already know that our boy just wants to have some quality family time when they get home. There's a spread of delicious food laid out on the table, and they all seem to be having a great time eating together. It does seem odd that Grandpa only works a security job, yet they have such a variety of every day. It's a bit of a mystery how they manage that. As they're having a good time eating together, our boy's thoughts drift back to his mercenary. Days after a moment, he shakes off the nostalgia and is back to smiling. Just then, his phone rings. It's Major Kang calling. The Major reminds him that he should just call him bro. Instead of using his rank, the Major asks how things are going, and our boy says he's doing well. But when the Major probes about his school life, there's an awkward silence on the line. In response, getting a bit anxious, the Major quickly asks if our boy has killed someone. Ijin quickly says no, but admits he did run into some trouble. That was quickly sorted out. The senior lets out a sigh of relief, and our boy reassures him that everything is fine now and there's nothing to worry about. Kang is relieved and reminds our boy that they're always there for him in his response. Ijin promises he won't forget that the next day at school we see the trio in class, but our boy is noticeably missing, and Young Chan seems a bit awkward among the two bullies. Jae-hyung starts asking odd questions curiously. He asks who they think would win in a fight between Ijin and SEO. Juko-hyuk Ijin points out that while Ijin is good, he probably couldn't beat SEO Juko, who's been training in combat since he was a kid. To him, our boy seems like an amateur in comparison. Hyung agrees, adding that Sokju KO is one tough mother. Fudger Young Chan then asks if it's true that Sokju KO fought against 20 dudes and one blonde quickly. Corrects him, saying it was actually 30 guys. The number leaves. Young Chan momentarily stunned. He even forget to breathe for a second. Brownhead explains that when a group of street thugs was harassing Yana since Sokju KO took them all out. He says it started with 10 guys, but they kept coming by the time 30 guys showed up. Sokju was still going. Strong. He walked off without a scratch, while the 30 thugs were left unconscious on the street, like discarded toys. The timid boy then asks about the rumors he heard about Sokju catching the kidnappers who took Yana. He's heard that the people behind it were all retired soldiers. The blonde quickly confirms that the story about Sokju Ko catching the kidnappers is probably true as well. He insists that Ijin doesn't stand a chance against Sokju, because he is on a whole other level. It's sometimes hilarious to think that teenagers in these Korean manhwa are taking down entire gangs single-handedly, making the government and all those intelligence and law enforcement departments look like they're just wasting taxpayer money. In the meantime, our boy suddenly stops in the corridor when he comes face-to-face with Sekju. Without wasting any time, Sokju asks him straightforwardly what he's doing here, confused. Our boy makes it clear that he doesn't understand what he is getting at. Sokju simplifies his approach and asks why he is lying about his identity. He mentions that he's heard our boy had a hand in Ji-Soo and Huijin Kim moving away. Ijin clarifies that he did have some beef with Ji-Soo, but he had nothing to do with their departure. That is when Sokju points out that he checked with the school our boy supposedly attended overseas, and they've never heard of him. Things seem to be heating up, but before we get our boy's response to Sokju, the scene shifts to Dayan. She's approached by Yana, the stunning girl from earlier. After a while, the two ladies are catching up, and Dayan mentions she didn't know Yana was back in Korea. Yana explains that she just started school the day before, and is actually in her brother's homeroom class. Dayan perks up in surprise. Yana then points out that she doesn't remember Dayan, mentioning having a brother before. Dayan explains that everyone thought her brother had died in the crash with her parents 10 years ago, but he survived. They only found out about his survival about 6 months ago. This scene flashes. Back to the past again. Dayan has just returned home and finds her grandfather frozen in place. While holding the telephone receiver, tears are streaming down his face as he reveals the shocking news that Ijin is alive. This revelation leaves Dayan stunned, and it's how she learns about her brother's survival back in the pre-stay. Present. Hyuna asks why no one didn't know about her brother all these years if he was alive but didn't reach out. Dayan explains that Ijin lost his memory in the crash, and it was only recently that he started to regain some of it, and someone helped them locate and reconnect with him. Yana, clearly skeptical, finds it hard to believe Dayan confirms that Ijin only has faint memories of having a grandfather and a younger sister. After the interrogation, Yana flashes a pleasant smile and comments that their grandfather must have been overjoyed to get his grandson back. Yana comments that their grandfather is indeed overjoyed, explaining that after receiving the call, he cried for hours and then took time off work to enroll in cooking classes. He wanted to improve his Korean cooking skills, thinking that Ijin might not have had much of that growing up. Yana comments that their grandpa must really love his grandkids, and Dayan smiles, agreeing that he definitely does, but then Yana throws a serious question her way, asking, is she absolutely sure Ijin is her brother? Dayan looks a bit surprised, but quickly gives a positive response, saying Ijin is definitely her brother, and they even took a DNA test. To be sure, our girl then asks why Yuna is so interested in her brother. This question clearly catches Yuna off guard since she is not sure what to say. She quickly asks, almost frantically, if her brother has a girlfriend. We then cut back to our boy who asks SEO aka Ju what the hell he's talking about. SEO aka Ju repeats his question, asking what's so important about this school that our boy had to forge his records just to be here. Ijin responds by asking if he's being accused of having fake records. C00K. Ju confirms this, saying they must be fake because, according to his research, Ijin never lived in that city, and the school he claims to have attended doesn't even have a record of him. Our boy then asks about the proof and reminds C00K Ju that if he's claiming the records are fake, there must be some evidence to back up the claim C00K. Ju is momentarily at a loss for how to counter this question. He discovered the discrepancy by digging around and talking to people connected to the school overseas. But he has no tangible proof. He's amazed at how Ijin handles the situation without flinching or showing any sign of being startled. Then our boy finally asks why SEO aka Ju is running a background check on him. In response, the blackhead explains that he can't just sit around and watch a suspicious kid who might pose a threat to his mistress. A silence falls between them for a moment. But then our boy finally answers, saying he came back home. SEO aka Ju is baffled by this vague response, so our boy clarifies that he was asked what he came here for, and his answer is simply that he returned from overseas for his family with. That our boy starts to leave EOAK. Ju stares after him with skeptical eyes, thinking that since he already suspects our boy has forged his records, it won't be long before he figures out his true identity. Once the class begins, we see Jae-hyun quietly immersed in playing video games while the blondie scrolls through his phone idly. Our boy Ijin notices that both SEO, aka Ju, and Yeona are absent from class. He's intrigued by how quickly these two, having just transferred yesterday, managed to gather so much information about him in less than a day. When the bell rings, the beta bullies approach young Chan, inviting him to play games and push ranks. They also invite Ijin, but he declines, mentioning it's his grandpa's birthday today. The bullies decide to hang out themselves, and young Chan is on board with that plan. Meanwhile, we're back with the Black Beauty, where SEO aka Ju is filling her in on the situation. He's convinced that Ijin has definitely forged all his records, and even questions the authenticity of the DNA test. SEO aka Ju further mentions that his research dug up some pretty rough stuff about his sister. Da-yeon, apparently she's been getting seriously bullied by Jisoo, Kim and his sister, for the past 2 years. When Yeona asks just how bad it was, SEO okay. Ju says it's enough to make anyone wonder how she endured the bullying all these years. He explains that the videos of her assault weren't exactly publicized, but he is pretty sure that the assault she faced was just as serious. Yeona's pretty blown away, and can't help but think about how messed up kids these days can be. SEO okay Ju adds that Ijin's already knocked out Jisoo Kim and his crew twice, and saved her sister from this bullying. Yeona chuckles to herself, thinking it's kind of sweet that her long-lost brother comes back from the dead and takes out her bullies, while Yeona's own siblings only ever seem to want to get rid of her. Yeona's curiosity gets the best of her as she starts piecing things together. She points out that if Ijin had really come to school with the intent to target her, it doesn't make sense that he'd be so upfront about it. A smart person would have stayed under the radar. CEO OK Ju agrees, noting that someone with a real plan would have kept a low profile. Yeona's mind starts racing once again, and she asks if Ijin might have some kind of ulterior motive related to Daeyoon's family. She brings up the insurance money from the plane crash. OK Ju then reveals that the grandpa received it, but hasn't used it, making it grow over the years. Furthermore, Grandpa returned the share of money which he got for Ijin's death since he was alive, but there's still a substantial amount left, so there is still a possibility that he might be after the money. Yeona connects the dots and highlights that if Ijin might actually be after the money, then it could mean Daehyun is in danger from her own brother. The scene shifts back to the grocery store where our duo can be seen shopping, and as usual, Ijin is drawing a lot of attention from the girls around while they browse for items. Daehyun takes a deep breath and admits she hesitates to ask. But her curiosity is overwhelming, so she desperately wants to know what his life was like after the crash. Our boy remains quiet for a moment, and the girl starts apologizing frantically, saying he doesn't have to answer if it's uncomfortable, but he just smiles and reassures her that it's okay. He begins his story, explaining that he was deeply traumatized and could barely think straight. He did whatever he could to survive, in a place where he didn't even speak the language, staying constantly busy just to get by. The girl falls silent, absorbing this heavy revelation. Then she starts to chuckle and asks if he was too busy to have a girlfriend during that time. He nods, agreeing with a laugh. She then reveals that she was surprised to learn he's in the same homeroom as Yona, something Yona herself had mentioned to her. Ijin is surprised to hear this and quickly asks her if she knows her. Daehyun explains that Yona was really nice to her before she moved to the US, and she had missed her a lot. So when she saw her again today, it was a happy reunion. And with a playful grin, Daehyun reveals that Yona even asked her if he has a girlfriend. And of course, our boy just gives a somewhat typical reaction upon hearing this later. Back at home, the birthday celebrations are in full swing. The siblings present their grandpa with a gift as he unwraps it. He discovers a high-quality wallet inside, and his face lights up with joy. He's genuinely touched and feels a bit guilty for the low pocket money they have, thinking they must have spent more than they could afford. But his granddaughter just smiles warmly and reassures him that they had more than enough to get him a gift, and besides, it wasn't too expensive. The old man's hands tremble with happiness as he holds the wallet with his voice thick with emotion. He tells them that the biggest gift he could ever ask for was already given to him when Ijin came back home safe and sound. Nothing could ever top that. Suddenly, the sound of a phone ringing grabs everyone's attention. Daehyun rushes to her room to answer it while she's chatting on the phone. Ijin tries to eavesdrop quietly. That's when he hears the girl mention she's heading out to the convenience store for a bit. The old man questions why she's going out at this late hour, and it turns out she is heading out because Yona stopped by for a quick chat. Well, we can tell that Ijin definitely senses something is off later that night. Ijin is digging into his computer trying to uncover all he can about SW Corporation, which Yona's family owns. He's curious why Yona seems so interested in him and why they're running a background check on a random transfer student like him. Ijin reflects on his conversation with Seokju, when suddenly he hears a call from his grandfather. When he steps into the living room, his grandpa mentions he's heading out for a bit too. Our boy asks if he's going after Daehyun, and the old man kind of agrees. He adds that he just needs some fresh air. Ijin smiles and tells his grandpa to stay put, and he'll go check on her instead. But the old man insists on going out by himself. Ijin then reminds him about the early job he has in the morning, and finally our boy decides to head out on his own later. We see both girls chatting away about their studies and other topics. Yona shares her experiences studying abroad, and suggests that Daehyun consider studying outside as well. In response, Daehyun admits she never really thought about it before. When Yona asks why, Daehyun explains that it costs a lot, and she'd need to be away for several years, which means she wouldn't get to be with her grandpa for a while. Yona finds this a bit strange. So Daehyun further elaborates, explaining that she doesn't want her grandpa to be alone especially since he's not in the best of health these days. However, she's grateful that her brother is always around, as his presence really helps her feel better. Meanwhile, Yona's having a hard time bringing up the real reason she came over, since Daehyun seems to really trust her. She's not sure how to bring it up without causing problems. We then flash back a bit where Seokju tells Yona that someone from the supposed overseas school confirmed that Daehyun's brother never attended there. They even looked at his photo and verified he was never a student, plus the current resident at his false address gave solid proof that he never lived there. Seokju's also checking out some other leads, so Yona decides she needs to meet with Daehyun to discuss what they found. But Seokju reminds her that while they have proof the records were forged, they can't yet prove that he isn't Daehyun's real brother. Yona's concerned, because the records from the decade he was missing are basically fake, since she's now living with him. It's a big deal that can't be ignored. She thinks Daehyun deserves to know the truth about the records, and wants to at least fill her in on what they found so far in the present. Yona is struggling to bring up the main topic she came here to discuss, even though it's her primary reason for visiting. Just as Daehyun expresses how happy she is to be chatting like this after a long time, we also see our boy making his way toward the both of the girls. However, Seokju steps in front of him, but Ijin simply tries to walk past him, but the newcomer quickly tells him to stay put. In Seokju's mind, he's sure Ijin must be here because he's worried they're going to share everything with Di-hyun, so he quickly blocks our boy's path and tells him that the both girls are just catching up and asks him to give them some time alone. Suddenly, a high-speed Volkswagen comes barreling toward them before anyone can react. The car slams into both of the boys, knocking them down like bowling pins. They hit the ground as the Volkswagen screeches to a halt right where the two girls are sitting. Ijin tries to stand up, but it's clear he's severely injured, especially around his head as he struggles to focus his groggy eyes. Catch sight of some shady people from the van trying to abduct both of the girls without wasting a second. Ijin starts sprinting like a madman, but his efforts are in vain. The kidnappers have already taken the girls, and there's no way he can outrun a car, so they're left behind helpless. The both of them quickly look at each other and, in their anger, grab each other by the collars. But after exchanging a few heated words, they realize neither of them is behind the abduction, so they let go. The black-haired guy immediately pulls out his phone and calls the security team at SW Corporation, urgently reporting that Yana has been kidnapped. He tells them to track her down using the security footage. Meanwhile, Ijin starts walking off, and the black-haired guy quickly asks him where he's going, and if he's actually not behind all this, Ijin simply replies that he doesn't have time to argue with anyone. Seokju points out that SW Corporation's security is already on it, and will find the girls soon. Until then, Ijin will need to stick with him so they can confirm his identity. But our boy makes it clear that he's going to find his sister, and if Seokju wants to follow him, he can gladly do so. Seokju starts to get the sense that Ijin might not be involved after all. But then our boy suddenly stops and humorously asks Seokju if he brought his car with him. Scene shifts to the bustling heart of the city's entertainment district inside one of the pubs. Mr. Cha is sitting back puffing on a cigarette and enjoying his laid-back time just then. His lackey informs him that someone is here to see him. When Mr. Cha turns around, he sees Ijin standing there. The scene then shifts to Saw Corporation, where we see a regal-looking lady sitting in her chair. I can tell she's definitely Yana's sister, because she looks just as gorgeous. With her flowing black hair, suddenly an assistant bursts into the room. The woman looks a bit annoyed at this sudden intrusion and wants to know why he didn't bother to ask for permission before barging in. The assistant quickly reports that Yona has been kidnapped. The news surprises the lady, but surprisingly she doesn't seem too troubled by it. In fact, she starts to smile faintly and seems to think that the rumors must be true after all. Not entirely sure what she's referring to, but let's roll with it. She then asks if their grandfather is still planning to go after the company. The assistant states that he is not sure, so she leans back, hoping that if he continues to pursue them without backing down, Yona will eventually die. It's definitely something she's looking forward to. The scene transitions. Back to the pub where we pick up the story with our main character. Meeting with Cha, and Seokju is also tagging along with him. Seokju already seems to know about Cha, as he recognizes him from their database. Is curious about how our boy knows this gangster. Cha starts by asking what our boy wants in response. Ijin simply says he needs some intel. Cha lights up another cigarette and scoffs, asking why he would bother to help him. Our boy cuts to the chase, revealing that the granddaughter of Saw Corporation has been kidnapped. That is something Cha definitely was not expecting to hear. However, he quickly brushes it off, saying it's not their problem and that they don't deal with such issues because it would be incredibly risky to mess. With Saw Corporation, our boy asks if Cha has any leads to offer, but the mafia boss makes it clear that there's no reason for him to share anything, especially since he's already in a difficult situation thanks to our boy. That's when our boy reveals that his younger sister was also taken along with S.A.'s granddaughter. Cha finally realizes he's in a tough spot. Now, as messing with our boy's sister is like messing with John Wick's dog. Both are equally dangerous. So, he then starts explaining and mentions that some people speaking broken Korean were asking around for untraceable warehouses as well as for burners, cars, and a few extra hands. The offer was tempting, but he turned them down because dealing with this kind of trouble isn't something you can easily wash off. He adds that he's heard another crew took the job, and all he knows is they're working out of Incheon. That's all the info he's got. It wouldn't be surprising if Seokju had already figured out who's behind this mess. Meanwhile, our boy starts to walk away after giving a final thanks. But then the mafia boss tosses his phone to our boy and tells him to save his number. Ijin cluelessly looks at him. puzzled about why he'd need his number. The mafia boss gets a bit agitated and clarifies that he'll need it to contact him once he digs into the warehouse. For more info with that, our boy starts entering his digits. He also asks if the bike outside the door belongs to him. Cha knows exactly what our boy is planning to do with it, so he feels hesitant to respond. But eventually, my guy takes the heavy bike, and before leaving, he tells Seokju figure his own way out to get there because he's taking the bike. Seokju questions whether he is going to trust this shady, half-baked info and going to chase those kidnappers based on that. Our boy explains that he doesn't have time to waste because Yana will probably be safe until the kidnappers get what they want. But there's no telling what they might do if Daehyun Seokju gets the logic behind Ijin's reasoning and stays quiet, and he can tell that he is a quick and sharp thinker. Seokju then tells him that he's already passed the info to his security team and will follow him in his car. Ijin just gives a cold response saying Seokju can do whatever he wants with that. He puts on his helmet, revs up the gas pedal and speeds off through the streets. The scene then switches back to the girls, where we see Da-hyun waking up with a headache. And as she becomes aware of her surroundings, Yona quickly apologizes, saying it's probably her fault that Daehyun got dragged into. Daehyun's mind starts to recall the recent event, and she is shocked to remember that they have been kidnapped. And Yona sadly confirms it, adding that she didn't expect this to happen so soon. After returning to Korea just then, the kidnappers arrive, and Yona coldly asks them why they had been abducted. One of the kidnappers snaps at her to shut up and stay quiet, and it'll be over soon enough. Of course it does not. Take her long to realize that these filthy people must be planning to use her as leverage against her grandfather. One of the lackeys then asks the boss what they should do with Daehyun, who was kidnapped simply because she was with Yeon. Unsurprisingly, the boss decides she is useless to them and orders his lackeys to get rid of her. But Yeona immediately speaks up, insisting she won't let them harm. Daehyun, the boss, asks what she can possibly do, and Yeona threatens that she'll bite her tongue and bleed to death, making it impossible for them to use her as a bargaining chip. The mafia boss finds it hilarious that she's willing to risk her life for someone she barely knows. He further taunts her, urging her to go ahead and try biting her tongue. Well, the mafia boss should have been more careful with his words, because Yana doesn't hesitate and bites her tongue, leaving blood pouring from her mouth. The boss yells in surprise while the other lackey watches in silence, clearly startled to see her steal like guts. The boss quickly stands up and tells her that her guts have bought her some time. Lackeys ask what the next order is. The boss tells them to get rid of Daehyun later and instructs them to stuff her mouth shut, so she can't make any noise. The scene then flashes back to our boy and SEO, Kyungju. It looks like they've arrived at the location Mr. Cha mentioned. Seokju points out that the location seems legit because SW security tracked the minivan footage to this area as our boy starts to move forward. Seokju tells him to stop and wait for backup, since he sent their coordinates to SW security and they should arrive soon. But our boy reminds him that Daehyun doesn't have much time left, so we gotta make it quick. There's no room for argument, so they proceed forward and spot a bunch of goons patrolling the area. Suddenly, our boy leaps over. One of the goons grabs him by the throat and starts choking him out. The lackey eventually loses consciousness, and our boy quietly drags him into the shadows, adding him to a pile of other goons. He's already taken down. Seokju is also helping out, and he's blown away by Ijin's ability to take down opponents silently. He's so impressed that he asks Ijin who the heck he is. Ijin just casually replies that he's an average student at the same school. The scene shifts to SW Corporation, where we finally meet the big boss, the grandpa of the company. He's getting a report from the black-suited guy about the kidnappers. Demands the guy explains that the kidnappers want SW Corp to cancel their recent contract. If SW Corp doesn't respond within an hour or refuses to comply, they'll kill Miss Yana. The old man asks about the security details, and the black-suited guy says that SW Security will reach the location where Yana is being held within 50 minutes back at the shady location. We hear two lackeys chatting. They're curious about their client and why they're making them do this. Kidnapping, one of them says. Their boss has already made it clear that it's none of their business, and they should just follow orders just then. One of the lackeys gets a smack right on the head and crumples to the ground. He turns around wincing to see Ijin, who's already taken out the other guy after they're done with the goons. Ijin asks his fellow how many he's knocked out. Soju says the guy he left behind makes it 5 in total. Ijin then does a quick mental tally and realizes they've taken down 14 guys, meaning the enemy have got plenty of muscle and resources. Jokju is blown away. That Ijin managed to take down 9 guys while he struggled with just 5. Finally, Ijin asks the blackhead who's pulling the strings. The guy lets out a heavy sigh and says they don't really know. Apparently, these kinds of incidents pop up now and then. This kind of thing also happened when they were in America. He never thought it would happen again so soon after coming back to Korea, and feels like he should have been more on the ball. Ijin points out that the real mastermind must be with Yana right now, so he decides to push deeper into the location before he moves on. Ijin asks Seokju if he'll be okay. Seokju looks puzzled and asks, okay, about what Ijin explains, that he was pretty banged up when that van ran over him. The blackhead just shrugs it off, saying, our boy should focus on his own injured leg. Instead, suddenly someone starts shouting, asking where all the lookouts went. Another one jokes that maybe everyone went to take a dump. But then another questions why they'd all need to take a dump together. As they walk forward, they finally spot their guys lying unconscious before the confused goons can figure out what's happening. Ijin delivers a brutal knee smash to one's face. Ijin then turns to the thin, mustached goon, grabs his hand and delivers a savage kick to his leg, followed by a brutal smack to his head with that both goons are out cold. Ijin decides to split up, but before they part ways, Seokju calls out to him when our boy turns around. Seokju says that once they're out of this mess, he owes Ijin an official apology back with the boss. He's hearing the commotion outside and tells his lackeys to check it out. We see our ladies with their faces covered in clothes. To keep them from screaming as Ijin walks down, he runs into the lackeys. The guy in the mask points out that he has seen Seokju in pictures so he can confirm that this brat definitely is not him. He then questions our boy how he came inside. Ijin stays silent in response, and he quickly figures out these are the guys behind the kidnapping. Meanwhile, the masked guy orders his lackeys to just get rid of this brat. Just before we see Ijin take out the goons, the scene cuts to Seokju, who's hiding in the storeroom looking around cautiously. There he finds both ladies tied up, and thankfully no one else is around. So he figures they must all be out looking for Ijin. He sneaks over to the girls, quickly pulls the mask off Yona's face, and she asks if the security team has arrived. Seokju tells her they're on their way. Iona is shocked to hear this, and asks how he found them out. Here. That's when the mafia boss chimes in, and he is thoroughly pleased to hear that the security team won't be arriving anytime soon. The boss then says he must be Seokju from SW Corporation, and he's heard a lot about him. He adds that this brat has been quite the pain, always lurking around Yana and ruining their plans. The mafia boss makes it clear he has no clue how Seokju found their hideout, but he's certain it wasn't smart to come here alone. Without backup, one of the lackeys suddenly lunges at Seokju, but my guy sidesteps the attack and throws a punch of his own. However, this lackey isn't a pushover. He dodges the punch and quickly retaliates. Seokju realizes this. Guy is tougher than the goons they took down outside, and he's having a hard time keeping up. But then Seokju lands a brutal whack and follows up with a devastating punch to the lackey's gut, leaving him doubled over in pain to finish things off. Seokju delivers a powerful leg swing, and the lucky finally looks like he's down for the count just when we think it's over. The thug tries to swing back in retaliation, but Seokju meets him with a devastating knee smash to the back, and the guy quickly starts to crumble the scar-faced boss notes that he knew Seokju had been trained from a young age. But he didn't realize he was this impressive. Even the two girls are shocked by what they're witnessing. But the mafia boss isn't here for a duel of pride with those words. The lackey pulls out a blade and starts slashing at Seokju, landing several brutal cuts across his body. The boss grins under his mask, saying he didn't expect this brat to fight empty-handed, which makes dealing with him a lot easier. The lackey charges at Seokju again with the dagger, and begins swinging left and right, like a madman. Seokju does his best to dodge, but he's still taking deep, painful cuts that leave him struggling to move. The boss pulls out his own dagger and starts juggling it in the air, clearly enjoying himself as he eyes the girls. As soon as Seokju sees this, he immediately knows. Dae-yeon is in serious trouble. The poor girl is already terrified. Just imagining what's about to happen before Seokju can react, the bastard throws his dagger straight at her, aiming to end her life, but at the last second, Yona leaps in front of Dae-yeon, and just as the dagger is about to hit, Seokju jumps in front of both girls, taking the blade straight into his back. The mafia boss scoffs at Seokju. mocking him as a pitiful bastard who's only good for the empty praises people give him. He then orders his lackeys to leave Yana alone and kill the other two. The lackeys quickly agree and begin to walk forward to carry out the order. Suddenly, everyone hears the door creak open and all eyes turn to see Ijin making a badass entrance after taking down the goons and leaving them sprawled on the ground. Back at the club, Gangster Cha is there with his lackeys. They fill him in with the latest info reporting that the Gosung cartel is behind the abduction. Cha is stunned by the ridiculous mistake the Gosung cartel made by getting involved with both Ijin and SW Corporation. It was bound to backfire considering how the cartel never digs into their clients before taking a job. One of the lackeys then asks Cha why he helped Ijin. He further points out that Ijin is the one who put them in a tight spot, and he's the one who exposed all the dirt on the Kim family they'd been keeping under wraps for years. Cha lets out a big sigh, saying he had no choice. He points out that he's just an old man who couldn't possibly take on a kid like Ijin, and they can't just take revenge on him, especially since it was the Kim family who messed with him first. The lackeys then remarks that they don't have to help Ijin. Either Cha falls silent for a moment, then chuckles to himself, and further states that he had no choice but to help him since his sister was kidnapped back at the hideout. Ijin makes his grand entrance. The lucky leader asks who this guy is. Aliona is stunned to see him. Daeyoon is also shocked to see her brother, and when she mentions this out loud, the mafia boss overhears and realizes Ijin is her brother. The boss bursts into laughter, nearly losing his breath. He finds it hilarious that he kidnapped a girl and now her adorable brother is here trying to save her. He finds the whole situation quite amusing. Meanwhile, Ijin turns to his sister and asks if she's okay. Daeyoon starts to cry, her tears streaming down as she begs her brother to just get out of here. Meanwhile, Yona is heartbroken seeing these two siblings dragged into this mess because of her. She shouts at the lackey leader and offers to cooperate and tells them to let everyone else go in exchange for her cooperation, the mafia. Boss snaps back, asking why he should do her any favors. Yeon-ah falls silent. Realizing she doesn't have much leverage, Suk-ju, battered and bruised on the ground, watches Ijin with a mix of admiration and amazement. Despite the tense situation they are in, Ijin doesn't seem to flinch. Finally, the lackey leader orders his goons to take Ijin down, he says. They've already given him enough time and it's time to finish this. The lackey steps forward, dagger in hand, ready to take down Ijin. But before he can make a move, Ijin quickly deflects the attack, grabs the lackey's wrist and drives the dagger into the lackey's own chest. The mafia boss is utterly stunned by this turn of events, and Sek-ju watches in shock as well. Daeyoon is also blown away by the sight of her brother's skill, and her brother quickly tells her to close her eyes. The girls quickly comply, shutting their eyes tightly. Ijin then slashes the lackey, leaving deep bloody gashes across his body. Blood splatters everywhere as the lackey collapses to the ground covered in his own blood. Younghwa is still trying to process what just happened, because it's all too overwhelming for her. Meanwhile, Suk-ju is left in absolute awe, realizing Ijin isn't just swinging his knife around aimlessly. Instead, he has expertly severed the lackey's muscles and ligaments to neutralize him. The mafia boss is also quite amazed to see this, and comments that he doesn't seem like a brother at all, but more like a bodyguard. Ijin keeps advancing toward him, and the boss retracts his previous statement quickly. He admits that Ijin must be more than just a bodyguard because no ordinary kid could wield a knife like that and maintain such a cold gaze. He then brushes it off, saying, it doesn't really matter because he's still planning to kill Ijin anyway. He swings his dagger at him, but my guy quickly ducks down with a godspeed and the boss keeps on swinging his dagger left and right as the mafia boss lunges at Ijin with his dagger. Ijin easily blocks the attack with one hand and swings his own dagger at the boss. The boss, quick on his feet, steps back, just in time to avoid the brutal hit. The two engage in a deadly dance of blades, each strike more vicious than the last, but this time Ijin's blade finds its mark slicing through the boss's hand, leaving it temporarily useless. The mafia boss, now in pain and disbelief, demands to know who Ijin really is, but my guy remains silent, his expression unreadable. As he prepares for the next round without hesitation, the mafia boss charges at Ijin again. This time, Ijin effortlessly grabs his wrist, and with a quick motion slashes through the boss's other hand after delivering a few brutal cuts. Ijin follows up with a crushing punch to the lackey's face, leaving him staggering backward with a bloodied nose. The mafia boss, now enraged and desperate, grabs a gun and aims it directly at Ijin. But before he can pull the trigger, Ijin throws his dagger with deadly accuracy. It embeds itself in the boss's shoulder, causing him to wince. In pain, seizing the moment, Ijin launches himself at the boss with lightning speed. He delivers a devastating slap under the boss's chin, sending him crashing backward like a sack of potatoes. The mafia leader, now thoroughly beaten, collapses to the ground, his pride and power shattered. The others watch in stunned silence as Ijin stands tall like a total badass, his presence alone making Yeona and Seo Kyungju tremble slightly. Ijin steps forward, gently telling his sister to open her eyes. When she does, she sees him standing right there, a reassuring smile on his battered face without missing a beat. He tells her he's here to take her home. Yeona is momentarily shocked by his injured appearance and places her hand over his wounds, asking if he's okay. Ijin, with a warm smile, reassures her that he's fine. Despite the injuries, his calm behavior and comforting words make her emotions overflow, and she starts to cry uncontrollably. Ijin does his to comfort her, his own heart, aching to see her so upset. Yeona is deeply moved by the compassion Ijin shows for his sister, observing them with admiration. The next day, we are at SW Seoul Medical Center. Ijin sits quietly in the corridor, his handsome face drawing the attention of passing nurses. His phone buzzes with a message from Jae-hyung, who is curious why Ijin isn't at school. Ijin replies that he's got an errand, and as he checks his messages, he sees his friends excitedly discussing their hangout and teasing him for missing out. Ijin smiles as he reads his friends' messages, feeling a warm connection despite missing out. He leans back in his seat, letting his gaze drift around the corridor. His eyes fall on the room across from him, marked with a sign that reads Psychiatry Department. The scene transitions to later that night after Ijin's intense battle with those Goonies. The police and authorities arrive at the scene. They round up all the criminals present, and doctors begin tending to Ijin's sister. Yeona approaches Ijin and tells him that he should take his sister to the hospital and promises to take care of the bill. Ijin looks puzzled and asks why. Given that his sister seems to be unharmed, Yeona explains that even though Daeon doesn't appear injured at the moment, she may have sustained unseen injuries. The trauma of the situation is significant, and she emphasizes that it's crucial to ensure Daeon gets thorough medical attention. She also mentions that she recently discovered Gisu and Hoojin Kim had been harassing Daeon, and while she's relieved they've been penalized, the resolution for the victims is still incomplete. She further explains that speaking with a counselor could be beneficial for Daeon. After the traumatic experience, this is why we are waiting outside a psychiatrist's office, rather than an emergency ward. As Dae-hyun exits the room, she approaches Ijin and asks if he's been waiting long. Ijin reassures her that he just came here a few minutes ago. He then inquires about what the doctor said. In response, she explains that there's nothing serious to worry about. She will need to attend sessions once a week for a while, but overall she's fine. Ijin also shares that his own injuries are minor, just a few light bruises. The girl also let out a sigh of relief. She is relieved that he's okay. Ijin's mind drifts back to how she was so emotional after being bullied. A tough reminder of everything she went through. She calls out to him and he flashes her a smile, asking what's up. She just smiles back and says I forgot for a moment what she was going to ask. But inside her head, we can tell she's hesitant to bring up her question. The scene shifts back to earlier when the doctor was checking on her well-being. In the background, she overhears soldiers talking, completely amazed that a kid took down most of the kidnappers on his own. It just doesn't make sense to kick them at that moment. Dae-yoon is just as stunned by what the soldiers are saying. She's curious about how Ijin can fight so well, and what his life was like before coming back to Korea. But she can't make herself ask her any of these questions as they walk down the corridor. They run into Yeona the moment Dae-yoon spots her. She lights up with happiness upon seeing each other. Yeona quickly asks her about how the therapy went. Dae-yoon says it went well, and mentions she heard Yeona covered the bill for her treatment, so she tells her she really didn't have to do that. Yeona waves it off, saying it's no big deal, and reminds her friend that she's the one who got her into this mess. She then apologizes to her sincerely. Dae-yoon laughs it off, saying she's already apologized. Plenty besides Yeona herself was a victim too. That's when Ijin notices a massive bodyguard standing behind Yeona with a seriously intimidating look on his face. Despite the intense stare he is giving, our boy Ijin remains totally unfazed. Diana then turns to Ijin and asks if he's had his checkup. Our boy quickly says, Yes, and Daeon chimes in saying she had to drag him there. He only agreed to go after she threatened not to go to the hospital herself. If he didn't, Diane then asks about Sok-ju, and Yeona confirms he's in the same hospital. Diane appears really eager to see him and decides they should stop by before leaving. Even though she is excited about the visit, we can tell Ijin's feelings are less clear. Still, they end up visiting Seo-Q and Daeon. Make sure to thank him for saving her from the blade. Seo-Q is a bit startled by her sudden gratitude and stutters, saying it's no big deal. She then asks Seo-Q if he's feeling better. He replies that he's indeed feeling much better now. Meanwhile, Ijin isn't too happy seeing his sister getting cozy with Seok-ju. He just stands there in silence, clearly uncomfortable. Even Johanna and her bodyguard notice that Ijin seems to be troubled. Diana then hopes Seok-ju recovers quickly with that. They decide to leave. Johanna waves them goodbye, and they walk away through the main door. Once they're gone, the bodyguard is deep in thought, remarking how hard it is to believe that someone like this seemingly scrawny kid could take down a bunch of people at once. It's just unbelievable. Yana chuckles and admits she's pretty amazed herself, but she isn't sure if it's something that would even surprise a pro, like the bodyguard. The bodyguard shrugs and says it's not just about the kid beating up a group of guys, because there appears to be something way deeper about our boy. The bodyguard explains that our boy quickly and quietly neutralized over 10 guards, which is no easy feat. Even a trained pro would struggle to do that without some kind of backup. What's even more mind-blowing is that he didn't kill any of them. He just made them unfit for combat, and judging by the cuts on the 2 men found in the cargo container, his knife skills are insanely advanced, especially considering those guys were retired soldiers. Not just a report and the state of those thugs. It's pretty clear that Ijin Yu is a highly trained pro with a ton of combat experience. Both Seok-ju and Daeyeon are completely blown away. By this, a while later, we catch up with Daeyeon and Ijin. Daeyeon quickly apologizes, feeling really ashamed that she always seems to need his help. Ijin tells her she doesn't need to apologize at all, and that he should be the one thanking her. Daeyeon is startled to hear this, and Ijin continues, saying he understands what it feels like to have a family. Now you see it as for the first time in his life, he put someone else's safety above his own, without any calculations, something he'd never experienced before coming to this country. So he's starting to get what family really means. We then see the same woman with short black hair. Again! And I will say it once again. She's likely Yona's sister, and she looks utterly distraught that Yona was rescued safely. The reporter details that there is suspicious rumor going around. He elaborates that while Sok-ju played a key role in the rescue, the exploits of another student who accompanied him were even more extraordinary. She asks how that's possible, and the reporter responds that even the chairman has taken an interest in this student. And we already know that this student is our boy. Of course, a woman is shocked, and wonders if these rumors might actually be true. We see Ijin once again doing some hardcore pull UPS, as he works out his mind flashes with images of the people he fought that day. Just as he's lost in the intensity of the exercise, Daeyoon knocks on the door and mentions that she's brought some fruit. While Daeyoon munches on the delicious fruit, Ijin arrives and quickly asks his sister how she's feeling. She responds that she's already answered that question 1,000 times and she's fine. Once Ijin sits down, he notices something on Daeyeon's mind. He asks her what's up. That is when she assures him that she does not hate him just because she saw him fighting and beating those guys brutally. He claims that it doesn't change how she views him after all. He did all this just to save her. And she won't ask him about his past either. Daeyeon then gets somber, saying she was never able to tell Grandpa about any of the bad things that happened at school. She just wasn't ready to share it with him, but now she feels more relaxed, as if she can open up about anything. Suddenly her phone rings. It's Yona on the call, so she grabs the phone and heads to her room while still on the call. A while later, we see Yona sitting in front of Ijin, quickly tells him to take a seat as well. Ijin sits down and asks why she wanted to see him. Yona explains that she wanted to apologize for putting Daeyeon in such a dangerous situation, even though she's already apologized before she wanted to say it to him. Personally, he explains that Seok-ju will also come to apologize in person once he's better. She also wants to thank Ijin for saving her as well. Ijin makes it clear that he only went to rescue Daeyeon, not Yona. She shrugs, saying that it doesn't change the fact that she was saved thanks to his intervention. Once she's finished, Ijin asks if there's anything else she wanted to say. Yana admits that she also wanted to let him know that they will stop investigating his background. So she is hoping that he is not too mad that they tried to dig into his past. He then lets out a sigh and explains that she couldn't ignore the fact that all of his documents were forged after a recent kidnapping attempt in America. It raised some red flags for her. She's been in many tough situations, so she was little because of who she is. She says that although they never figured out the truth behind his fake records, he won't be investigating it further. Ijin starts to leave, saying if there's nothing else, he'll be on his way. Yana looks startled and asks if he could spare a couple of hours because her grandpa wants to meet him and thank him in person. While Ijin is heading back, he replies that there's no need for that, since he wasn't there to rescue her in the first place. Yana falls silent, and Ijin heads home walking down the dimly lit, gloomy alleys. Late at night as he walks, we see a familiar person over that street. As the scene zooms in, we see that this is one of Mr. Cha's lackey, who has been brutally shot in the gut. And it does not take long for our boy to recognize who this man is. The man is barely holding on to his life, but makes sure to start berating Ijin, blaming him for putting his gang in danger. He explains that they were already struggling. After Ijin exposed the Kim family, then their boss also helped our boy by tipping off the location of the Gushong cartel, which stirred up trouble between the Gosong cartel and their gang. Mr. Cha's turf is now under attack. His friends and lackeys have already been killed, and the Ghost Young cartel leader made sure to personally visit Dusik Cha when Ghost Young finally faces off with Cha. He throws a verbal jab asking why he doesn't just give up before making a fool of himself in front of his men. Cha responds with a jab of his own, pointing out that he's already sent most of the crew on a weekend off. Yet Go Shang brought his entire platoon of lackeys then. Another guy in a coat chimes in and tells Cha that he really shouldn't have stirred up trouble by messing with the Kim family, and when it was not enough, he tipped off Go Song and his men recently. Our gangster throws another brutal jab, and this time, Go Song himself loses his cool, and he is going absolutely bonkers to what just Cha said. He furiously orders all his lackeys to charge at Cha. The gang rushes at Cha like a pack of wild dogs ready for a fight, but our beloved gangster isn't just any weakling. He deftly ducks, letting a punch zoom past over his face, and retaliates with a devastating blow that leaves his attacker reeling. Another lackey tries to swing at him, but ends up taking a brutal hit right under the chin, crashing to the ground in a pool of blood. Gushang grinds his teeth in frustration while Cha continues to drop lackeys as if they're mere flies. Suddenly, Cha takes a brutal jab with a stick from behind. He groans in pain but quickly recovers, throwing a punch in return that sends his assailant crashing down for the count. Even though Cha manages to take out a bunch of guys, the sheer number of lackeys is overwhelming, clear that despite his skill, he won't be able to take them all down like this. Beloved gangster takes his stance, knowing he's up against copious amounts of people, and is furious that Ghost Young brought so many guys when he knew Cha does not have most of the men in the club. He can't help but smirk when he thinks about our boy, wonders if he has saved his little sister by now. With the speak of the devil, Ijin arrives outside the club, the lackey standing guard. Tell him to get lost. Ijin isn't about to take orders. He delivers a brutal kick to one of them, sending him crashing to the ground and leaving the other two speechless at Ijin's audacity. He then dismounts from his bike, and the two remaining lackeys try to take a swing at him, but Ijin effortlessly grabs one's hand and delivers a devastating smash to his face, leaving blood splattering everywhere. The remaining lackey tenses up at the sight and ends up taking a heavy kick to his gut. With both goons taken care of, he moves further into the club, only to find a brutal scene of dead bodies as he advances a group of arrogant thugs, orders him to leave. But our boy remains unfazed, keeps walking toward them. One of the thugs steps up, yammering some nonsense, but my guy quickly silences him with a single blow, sending him crashing to the ground and leaving. The others utterly terrified despite their fear. The thugs recklessly charge at him, and our boy begins to deliver blows, taking them down. One after another, the scene switches back to gangster. Cha was now exhausted after knocking out a bunch of thugs. Go. Xiong is absolutely livid, unable to believe that Cha is holding his own for so long by himself. On the other hand, go. Xiong's assistant feels a sense of relief that they only attacked Cha while he was alone. Otherwise, it would have been a massacre. More lackeys charge at our gangster. but he quickly takes out the one in front of him before he can fully move around. He receives a devastating punch to the face. Cha responds in kind, delivering a powerful punch back with equal force. At this point, Cha is barely hanging on. Even Go-shun reluctantly admits that he is a tough nut to crack and deserves praise for his efforts. However, he makes it clear that Cha looks like he's at the end of his rope and should just give it up now, they'll make it worth his while. Cha spits out a mouthful of blood and asks why he should do that. Wiping the blood off his face, he decides he's going to finish what he started. No matter what, we can tell that the big cheese is not impressed by Cha's gutsy display, and the swarm of lackeys surrounding the place are visibly shaking to hear his bold statement. Suddenly, there's a commotion at the entrance, with the lackeys screaming their heads off. Go-shun, bewildered, asks, "What the hell is going on? And why his men are screeching like dogs?" They turn around initially, seeing nothing, but then they hear footsteps out steps. Ijin and the entire crowd of lackeys is stunned to see a kid in their midst. Cha, equally shocked to see him, and quickly asks what the hell he is doing there. To which Ijin casually responds that he's just there to return the motorcycle he borrowed. Cha was literally not expecting to hear this kind of crap while they are surrounded by death itself. Meanwhile, Go-shun's assistant sneers. Once he realizes that Cha knows this kid, so he promptly orders his lackeys to take Ijin down as well. The lackey proudly complies and begins to walk toward our boy as if he is about to scold the toddler Cha, then tells them that it would be better if they just leave him alone. But the assistant insists they can't just let Ijin go, since he's seen everything. Cha snaps back once again, saying they should pray to God that Ijin feels generous enough to let them go. Not the other way around. The assistant has no clue what this stupid head is yammering about, but he soon gets a wake-up call. When Ijin takes down one of his guys with a single punch, our boy then follows up with a kick that cracks another lackey's leg, and a headbutt to another, sending him sprawling one of the thugs. Try to swing a bat at Ijin from behind, but Ijin quickly grabs his hand and delivers a brutal smash to his face, leaving him bloodied. The bat clatters to the ground. Shang is completely blown away by Ijin's display, and Cha-jia smirks, saying it's their fault for not listening earlier. He adds that even though Cha himself is tough, he wouldn't stand a chance against this kid. The big cheese simply commands his lackeys to take Ijin down, and they quickly charge at him, but as usual, Ijin effortlessly takes them down, making them look like amateurs in the process. Growing impatient, the big cheese shouts at his lackeys to stop letting a little punk beat them. But just as he's about to make another command, he suddenly falls silent when he sees Cha charging at him at this point. Go-shun is pretty sure things are about to get even messier for him shortly after the big cheese, and his lackeys are all on the ground, looking like they've kissed the dirt. While Cha slumps back utterly exhausted, Ijin strides over to him, and when Cha looks up, he sees the wreckage of the fight. People scattered around like discarded wrappers with Ijin standing triumphantly. Ijin starts heading out casually, saying that Cha has now paid his dues. Cha is shocked, and still trying to wrap his head around how this kid is so fixated on the same bullcrap. After all this, he then asks if Ijin saved his sister. Ijin calmly replies that he did, and it's all thanks to Cha. The next scene shifts to a hospital room where one of Cha's lackeys suddenly jolts. Awake. As he looks around, he spots Cha on the other side of the room, all patched up but clearly still in rough shape. The lackey is stunned to see his boss there, and Cha quickly tells him to stop calling him boss while they're in the hospital. Confused, the junior asks how his boss ended up here. Cha casually mentions he got roughed up and just took a cab to get treated. The lackey then inquires about Go-shun and the rest of the lackeys. Cha, with a nonchalant shrug, says he took care of them all. The junior simply can't believe it, and calls this BS, prompting the senior to get a bit annoyed and asks why his junior thinks he'd lie. The lackey suggests it's probably because he is too embarrassed to admit he got beaten by Go-sung Cha, then asks if he happened to have met Ijin. Yesterday, the junior perks up and confirms that he did indeed meet him. He further explains that he got ambushed by the enemy team while he was heading out of the club after getting brutally wounded. He found our boy and yelled at him. He charged at Ijin out of anger, but after receiving the first hit, he fainted and doesn't remember anything else. The boss explains that Ijin probably knocked him out to get him to the hospital. Cha then continues saying that inside the club he was overwhelmed by the sheer number of enemies. That's when Ijin showed up, took them all out in seconds, and then told him he'd paid his dues. Before simply walking out, the lackey finds this absolutely admirable. and thinks it's really badass to say the least. The senior agrees, acknowledging that Ijin is indeed quite impressive. The lackey then asks his boss if he has any clue who this kid really is. The senior points out that Ijin claims to be just an average real teenager, so he figures they'll have to take his word for it. In the next scene, we see a football heading straight toward Ijin, and he catches it effortlessly. The referee immediately announces it as a handball, leaving everyone on the playground absolutely shocked. His friend, visibly annoyed, reminds him that he's not supposed to grab because he's not a goalkeeper. Ijin is confused about why he's getting an earful, apologizes anyway. Suddenly, the bell rings, and Ijin's friends call out to him asking if he has time to hang out. Since today is the only day Yang Chan doesn't have lessons after school, and they're planning to do some gaming together, Ijin tells them to go ahead, and that he'll meet them at the location later because he needs to walk his sister home first. His friends are a bit bewildered and ask if he started to babysit his sister again. Ijin explains that she's not feeling well lately. Blondie decides to save a spot for Ijin, and meanwhile, Daehyun is preparing to leave her class. She's thinking about making kimchi stew for Ijin because he loved it the last time. However, she's unsure if he can handle spicy food, so she's considering making a milder soybean paste stew instead. Suddenly, she hears a buzz of excitement from the other girls in her class. They're all gathered by the window, swooning over Ijin. Some find him hot, while others are hoping he'll become their boyfriend. The girls even turn to Daehyun and ask if her brother is dating anyone. Daehyun is caught off guard by their dripping enthusiasm about her brother, so she hesitates, and then reluctantly says that he mentioned he's not dating anyone. As the ladies dash back over the window, Daehyun smiles faintly, clearly pleased that her brother is well known among the girls walking outside the school. She wonders why Ijin doesn't have a girlfriend, and if he might not be interested in girls at all. Suddenly, she hears some voices nearby and discovers that it's Ijin. With his friends startled, she quickly tries to greet them as politely as possible. One of the more bashful lackeys blushes at her cuteness and just waves in response to her greeting. The boys decide to head off to the game room, hoping Ijin will meet them there. Once they're gone, Daehyun asks if Ijin is hanging out with his friends. He confirms that he is, but adds that he'll stop at home first. When she asks if it's because of her, Ijin explains that he just left something at home, but she still insists that she can walk home on her own since it's still bright outside. However, Ijin claims that he really needs to pick up something he left at home. She then points out that he doesn't need to go out of his way for her. Just like she told Yana when she offered to have security escort her, all she wants is to lead a normal life. Ijin stays quiet but agrees to her request, saying he'll do as she says, though he suggests they still walk home together from time to time. Daehyun pouts, saying he worries too much. But Ijin explains he's not just worried, he actually enjoys their walks. In the end, she finally agrees to keep walking with him. As they're walking, Ijin suddenly stops when he spots that same woman with black hair, which we suspect to be Yona's sister. Anyway, she greets Ijin, but he doesn't bother to respond to her greetings. Meanwhile, Daehyun is just as clueless about the woman with the black hair. The woman then pretends to notice Daehyun for the first time, puts on an exaggeratedly concerned look, and says she must be the one who went through so much because of Yona's abduction. Daehyun is seriously confused by now and asks who she is. The woman introduces herself as Yona's cousin and says she's here to thank Daehyun for helping Yona and offers to treat her to dinner if she has some time. Ijin flatly refuses, explaining that Yona already thanked him personally, so there's no need for this stranger to go out of her way. The woman is bewildered by his bluntness, but tries to continue the conversation, saying she also has a proposition that could benefit both of them once again. Ijin firmly declines, saying he's not interested. He then just starts to walk away, leaving this arrogant woman absolutely fuming. But before he's completely out of sight, Daehyun makes sure to bow her head and give her one last polite nod. Meanwhile, the lady is seething with rage, and her guard asks if he should bring him back forcefully, but the lady says no. It seems her ego's been bruised more than we thought, and she's practically boiling over with anger. Next up, we're in the gaming room where everyone's glued to their TV screens. While they're all deeply immersed in their game, Yang Chan decides it's time to take a dump. As he's heading down the hall, he accidentally bumps into a cocky punk. This guy immediately starts threatening Yang Chan, barking at him to watch where he's going. Yang Chan, poor guy, is practically shaking and stumbles out an apology. But Mr. Cocky isn't done. He's about to slap Young Chan across the face just in the nick of time. Jae-hyung bursts onto the scene and saves his friend from getting slapped. Jae-hyung strides over cockily, telling the cocky punk to get over it, because there's no need to make a scene over a little shoulder bump. He quickly spits out the lollipop he was sucking and locks eyes with the punk and tells him to not take them for a bunch of goddamn scaredy cats. The punk's nerves are clearly rattled by Lee Jae-hyung's deadly glare, and my guy continues to stare him down and demands this. Crazy punk. Why the hell he is staring? Once the punk is thoroughly intimidated, he finally walks off with whatever pride he has left. Jae-hyung lets out a puff of air through his nostrils, looking pretty pleased with himself. On the other hand, Young Chan still appears to be in shock, watching his friend and reflecting on the turn of events. It's a bit of a shock to him. Considering Jae-hyung used to be the one bullying him, and now he's the one coming to his rescue, Orangehead tells them they'd better hurry, or Hyuk Ijin will start giving them grief for being late. So they head toward the toilet, while Young Chan still can't believe his eyes that this dude saved him. When they finally return, Hyukjin asks why taking a dump took so long. Orangehead explains there was some idiot trying to mess with Young Chan. Hyukjin's interest peaks, and he quickly asks who it was. Orangehead says the guy was wearing a Gosak Tech uniform. Blondie then turns to Young Chan. Checking if he's okay, the timid fella simply replies that he's fine because nothing had happened since Jae-hyung interrupted. Just in time. Orangehead decides it's time to just dive into the game, but then a bunch of rowdy people burst into the gaming room. It's the same guy Jae-hyung bumped into earlier, and he's brought his lackeys to get revenge for the humiliation. Hyuk Jin is completely absorbed in his game and doesn't notice the people standing over his left shoulder. When he finally looks up, he sees a bunch of goons towering over him, and the leader of the gang quickly tells him to step outside. Both Hyuk Jin and Lee Jae-hyung realize that shit is about to get real, and Young Chan is shaking, terrified, just thinking about what's coming next. Once they head outside, Young Chan is trembling with fear, feeling utterly terrified because they've gotten into this mess because of him. The cocky guy from before starts bragging about how Orangehead was all talk and no action, claiming it'll be easy to take down him and his other friend. But our Orangehead doesn't back down. He mocks the cocky guy, pointing out how he was scared and walked off quietly earlier, only to come back with his lackeys. The cocky guy doesn't appreciate the jab and gets furious. He tries to land a punch on Orangehead, but Lee Jae-hyung quickly ducks and delivers a brutal punch to the cocky guy's face, showing him who's boss. The cocky leader staggers backward, and Young Chan, on the other hand, is practically panicking, convinced it's all his fault. They're caught up in this mess. That's when Lee Jae-hyung speaks up, telling his terrified friend that he doesn't need to feel guilty about anything, because these bastards are the ones who should be sorry. Those words absolutely melt Young Chan's heart, cause seeing his friend looking so badass while saying that is almost overwhelming. But then Hyuk Ijin chimes in, pointing out that it's the exact same line Ijin used a while back. And even the way Jae-hyung said it had the same energy. He jokes that he basically copied Ijin, and now he feels like he needs to bleach his eyes. After seeing his copycat friend in action, Orangehead starts blushing, feeling totally embarrassed, and admits that Ijin looked so cool when he said those words that they stuck in his head, and he couldn't help but repeat them while the trio is caught up in their own back and forth. They momentarily forget they're actually facing off against a gang, and they are too distracted to pay much attention to the goons, but soon enough, the lackeys charge at them because they are not here just to be simply ignored. In the middle of the fight, the Orangehead stands his ground. As soon as one of the thugs reaches him, he delivers a powerful kick to the guy's gut, sending him stumbling backward. Another goon tries to swing at him, but Orangehead responds with a brutal whack, taking him down. Young Chan, who's not exactly a fighter, is more or less panicking on the sidelines, unsure of what to do. Hyuk Ijin, however, is in full battle mode, taking down goons. Left and right, he turns to Young Chan and tells him to stay back and just watch from behind. Orangehead agrees, pointing out that while Young Chan might be a pro gamer, he is out of his element in this fight, so they have got things under control. Young Chan is completely blown away by this. He can't believe they're fighting because of him, and yet they're telling him to stay back. The goons are squirming and quivering on the ground after taking a serious beating. Our boys, on the other hand, are starting to struggle a bit, exhausted from the fight and outnumbered. Eventually, Jae-hyung takes a solid hit to the gut and feels pain. He's sure that he is screwed because the cocky guy is about to land a punch right on his face. But before the punch can connect, Young Chan jumps onto the cocky guy, grabbing him tightly like he's found his brother from another mother. They both crash to the ground, and the cocky guy starts shoving Young Chan aside. But Young Chan holds on tightly despite the fear. That's when Orangehead takes his chance and swings his leg, delivering a devastating blow to the cocky guy's head. The impact leaves Young Chan a bit teary-eyed from the sheer brutality. He's just witnessed something he's never experienced before. Orangehead stands tall, looking like a boss. After giving the cocky guy the final kick, he glances at the guy who's clearly down for the count. Yuk Ijin can't help but jab at Orangehead, noting how Yang Chan had to step in to save the day. Orangehead quickly gets embarrassed and defensive, saying he was about to take the guy down himself. They turn to Yang Chan, who's on the verge of tears. Orangehead immediately asks if he's okay. The timid fella quickly reassures. Tell him that he's fine, and apologizes for causing all this trouble. The scene shifts to our boy finally making it to the game room only to find it empty. He tries calling his friends, but no one picks up just then. He hears someone calling his name. He turns around to see his friends, who eagerly tell him he missed all the action. The beta bullies start bragging about how they just whooped some ghost hack tech guys. Head inside. And as they climb the stairs, they point out to Ijin that while he might not be familiar with the ghost suck tech guys, they're pretty tough, but not a match for them. As they head into the gaming room, they're shocked to find a bunch of people lying unconscious on the ground. The beta lackeys are blown away by the sight. Oh, quickly ask who took down all these Gosick tech guys. Our boy casually points out that he came looking for everyone, and was jumped by these guys when they saw his uniform. The three of them are absolutely stunned to realize that our boy took out all these men single-handedly after their mindless fun at the arcade. The group heads out to grab some grub. Beta bullies have brought the same delicious food Yang Chan usually eats, but Orangehead forgets to grab drinks and decides to go get some as soon as possible. Young Chan decides to go with him, but Orangehead opts to go himself as they start eating. Hyukijin feels proud and laughs about how they took down the Ghost Yak Tech goons. Orangehead agrees, saying the goons came in trying to act tough, but ended up getting beaten like dogs. Meanwhile, our boy looks at the tuna mayo food with no clue how to proceed. He watches as Jae-hyung tears off the seal and pops the snack out of its wrapper. He mimics Jae-hyung and starts to take a bite while eating. He asks his friends who started the fight. Jae-hyung explains that one of the goons was messing with Young Chan outside the game room, which triggered the whole scene. Our boy checks in on his timid friend, asking if he's all right. The friend says he's good because Lee Jae-hyung showed up to rescue him just in time. Orangehead then shares some advice, telling Young Chan that in situations like this, he should never back down. Young Chan looks a bit confused to hear this, so Orangehead explains that you shouldn't flinch in front of a bully. You need to make it clear you're ready for anything, or they'll just take advantage if they think you're scared cuke. Ijin agrees, saying you've got to show you won't take any crap, or they'll just walk all over you. Yang Chan asks what if they end up hitting him. Orangehead just shrugs and says they're going to try to hit him even if he's scared. But Yang Chan worries they might hit him harder. Orangehead agrees, but he points out that if you don't stand up for yourself, you'll just be seen as a pushover, and that's worse than getting beaten up. Hyuk Ajin also adds his 2 cents, saying he's seen this trick work before because no one wants to deal with trouble. Bullies usually pick on the quiet ones who never speak up. Young Chan stays quiet, probably realizing that he's always been picked on because he didn't, to stand up for himself as they chat. Our boy keeps munching on his delicious food. The scene then drifts to his past, where instead of fancy food, he was stuck with some mediocre curry and a piece of dry bread at that time. He had no choice but to eat it. What made it worse was that there were always strong guys around him, bullying the weak and taking their food. One day, a cocky guy demanded our boy hand over his food, but Ijin wasn't having any of it, so he fought back and left a gruesome mess behind his memory. Makes him reflect on how the same pattern of the strong preying on the weak seems to repeat itself both in his past and present situations. That's when Young Chan finally musters up his courage and says out loud that he doesn't like either of the beta bullies. 2 bullies choke on their food, their breath caught in their throats at hearing this. Young Chan continues saying he hates them because they bullied kids in class, including him. Orangehead looks curious and asks when they even bullied anyone. He points out that they only joked around sometimes. Nothing more. The blondie also agrees, saying that they never physically hurt anyone in class or made anyone do their dirty work compared to some of the other guys. Like Gisu Kim, they're practically saints, but Young Chan stands firm, saying that even though they might just be joking or playing rough, it's still a form of violence to others. The beta bullies are stunned because they are not sure what to think of it. Young Chan further continues, explaining that it's the same kind of violence no matter how big or small. He resents them for being so cruel without a shred of guilt. Once he is done speaking, he points out that since beta bullies told him to stand up for himself, he spilled everything he had in his mind to try it out. The beta bullies are completely thrown off by Young Chan's words. The blonde one is at a loss and says no one's ever told him anything like that before. He didn't realize people could see their actions that way and thought they were just joking around. The other bully also agrees, saying they figured it was okay since they weren't as bad as some of the others. Young Chan, still feeling nervous, explains that he was surprised by how nice the beta bullies seemed when he hung out with them. He guessed they didn't realize that what they were doing was a form of bullying, feeling guilty. Orangehead quickly apologizes. The blonde also says sorry, admitting they're not sure how to fix things but at least want to offer an apology. On the other hand, our boy is still messing with his food. When he takes off the shell of his rice ball, it drops to the ground, and he's totally bummed out. See, his meal ruined. His friends don't really know how to react, and they end up yelling at him when he tries to eat the rice ball after picking it up. In the bustling heart of the city, we find ourselves back at SW Corporation. There we see that same woman who claimed to be Yona's cousin is sitting at her desk suddenly. Yona storms into the room, clearly fuming, and she yells this woman's name, Jay. The sassy lady looks up and smiles at Yana, but before she can say much, Yana cuts her off with a sharp tone, demanding to know if she met Ijin recently. Jia tries to play it cool and reminds Yona that it was actually Yona who was tracking Ijin's background because she was suspicious of him. Iona frustratingly admits that she did investigate Ijin but had promised him she wouldn't pursue it further. Now she is also telling Jay to stop nagging our boy as well. Jay raises an eyebrow and reminds her that she shouldn't forget the kind of world they live in, especially given the recent kidnapping event. So she makes it clear that they are not taking any chances. And our boy's background is a major concern. Yana insists that Ijin wasn't involved in any of the recent trouble, but Jia quickly interrupts, saying that just because Ijin helped with a rescue doesn't make him trustworthy. Jia's manager also chimes in, pointing out that Ijin's identity is a significant issue for the school. They emphasized that a school affiliated with SW Corporation shouldn't have accepted a student with fake records, and they make it clear that they won't overlook this matter. Yona frustratingly grits her teeth. While Jia just smiles with a hint of satisfaction, she explains that they might receive some good news soon. Curious, Yona asks what kind of news she is talking about. Jia's manager explains that Ijin's records were restricted, so they had to consult higher UPS in their network to obtain more information. Jia looks at Yona with a challenging smile, asking if she's not curious about Ijin's true identity. Yona firmly states that she doesn't care, emphasizing that Ijin saved her, which is more than enough for her just then. The telephone rings, grabbing everyone's attention. Jia's smirk widens as she says, "It's time for them to hear the news together." She answers the call, and the caller announces that they have news to deliver. As Yona waits anxiously, Jia expresses hope that the caller will reveal information about Ijin's identity. The caller responds that the higher UPS have decided that SW Corporation should refrain from any further inquiries into Ijin's background. The announcement leaves Jia visibly pale, and the guard stunned as well. Her frustration boils over, and she starts yelling at the caller, demanding to know how they can simply let the matter slide. The caller makes it clear that, given the enduring relationship between SW Corporation and the government, they have decided to overlook that. The caller explains that Ijin is estranged from his family due to an unfortunate plane crash and is essentially a young man who has found his way back home. They emphasize that it would be best to let him live his life without further scrutiny the next day at school. Yona walks in with her escort, catching everyone's attention, including our boys, who are curious to see them back after such a long time. Yona suddenly starts looking at them with a direct gaze, which makes Young Chan feel uneasy. She approaches him and simply asks if Ijin isn't in school. Today, Young Chan, looking around for Ijin, explains that he was just here, but Jae Hyung explains that he just got called to the office a few minutes ago. As Yana and her escort Suk-ju settle into their seats, Her escort reveals that the chairman is at the school right now. Yana is surprised to hear that her grandfather is at the school and wonders why he didn't inform her of his visit, and if Ijin might have gone to meet him in the office. In the office, we finally meet the old man. We've been hearing so much about. He's thrilled to finally meet our boy in person, especially since our boy had previously turned down a meeting, so he came by himself to thank him for saving Yana. Our boy responds that there's no need for thanks. He was just trying to rescue his sister, and Yana happened to be there too. The old man acknowledges that he knows he still wanted to express his gratitude for saving his granddaughter and apologize for involving his sister. Our boy clears things up again, letting the old man know that he doesn't need to worry about that, since Yona has already apologized. The old man stays silent after hearing this, and our boy starts to head into the classroom. That's when Grandpa finally asks if he will become Yona's bodyguard. Not surprisingly, he flatly refuses, and makes it clear that this isn't something an average teenager like him can handle. The old man reminds our boy that an average teenager couldn't really handle a unit of kidnappers made up of former Special Forces soldiers either. Ijin then points out that Yona already has an internal security team guarding her 24/7. The old man agrees, but says that a security team can't be with her at school, and besides, she wouldn't be able to live normally with a team trailing her all the time. He explains that SEOQ was in charge of her security, but the recent incident made him realize he isn't the right person to protect her. So he's thinking of giving the job to our boy. Ijin starts to walk away again, saying he can't help. The old man goes quiet for a moment and then says he wasn't just here to thank him for saving Yona. He also wanted to thank him for what he did 3 years ago. As soon as our boy hears this, he freezes and quickly turns back toward the old man. The old man keeps going with his thanks, saying he's wanted to express his gratitude for a long time because without our boy's efforts, he wouldn't have had the chance to see his son before he passed away. It's clear that Ijin remembers what the old man is talking about, but he stays nonchalant, saying it was just another job. The old man insists it was a dangerous job that no one else would take on thanks to our boy's success in the mission. He was able to see his son again, and his son spoke about Ijin. Often the old man reveals that his son was worried and asked him to find out why our boy had become a mercenary. So the old man tried to track him down but couldn't. They find any leads. Now, as fate would have it, they're face to face, and he adds that Yona is his daughter. Ijin's mind quickly flashes back to the past, recalling the man mentioning that he had a daughter around his age. Still, Ijin makes it clear that he can't be Yona's bodyguard. However, he adds that he won't turn a blind eye if something happens to her. The old man is a bit taken aback, but then smiles and says that would be more than enough. He then adds that there's one more thing he'd like to request. He points out that he would like to hear Ijin's thoughts on the security team at SW. Ijin asks what he means, and the old man explains that SW's security team is part of a long-standing and proud tradition. Maybe too proud for their own good. They believe that Yona's recent kidnapping would have been contained. Even without Ijin's help, however, as SW continues to expand, the threats are growing, and their security division is lacking in innovation. The old man wants Ijin's honest assessment of their skills, and it will be a paid assignment, of course. Ijin lets out a sigh, feeling like all of this is just a drag. He then finally heads back into his classroom. As soon as he enters, Yona greets him, but he clearly ignores her and walks to his seat as the teacher starts the class for the day. Ijin sits quietly in his chair, thinking about the old man's words. He realizes that Yona's father must have died since the old man mentioned he'd seen his son before he passed away. The scene then cuts back to the past. We see Ijin as a mercenary, with all the site workers gathered around eating. Ijin is munching on some kind of food bar when a voice calls out to him asking how a kid like him ended up working as a mercenary. It's clear this man is Yona's father, and after he sees our boy's face, he comments that he didn't realize Ijin was so young. Ijin quickly covers his face and starts to walk away. But the man offers him his platter full of delicious and appetizing food. He tells Ijin to throw away his trash and eat this instead, saying that what he eats really matters at his age. Meanwhile, the other mercenaries chat about how their new client seems really wealthy, and explain how they're building roads, school, and a clinic in the town they're all stationed in. As they chat, Ijin listens quietly while he's on guard duty. The man walks up to him again, offering him a chocolate bar. Ijin just looks away later that night. The man offers him food once more, but Ijin turns away again. On a particularly rainy day, The man brings an umbrella and coat, but Ijin refuses them as well. One day, as Ijin is packing up his stuff to leave, the same man approaches him again. He says he'll miss having Ijin around and invites him to stop by if he can, since they'll be there for at least another month. The man then tosses a bag to Ijin, explaining that he's packed some snacks and basic medical supplies inside. Finally, Ijin speaks up and asks why he's giving him all this. The question catches the man off guard, and he's surprised to hear Ijin speak Korean. He adds that he tried speaking in Ijin's language and in English before, but didn't get a response. The man explains that he's giving these things because he has a daughter around Ijin's age, and he reminds him of her, so he can't help but worry. Later, we found ourselves in a rundown place where conflict is ongoing. We then see Ijin with his fellow mercenary. His fellow informs him that the town where Ijin was stationed as a guard has been taken over by a resistance group. He explains that they were waiting for the foreigners to finish their construction so they could take over the buildings, and most of the people at the site had been killed. Ijin is jolted out of his flashback by the sudden ringing of the bell, and he notices Yona calling out to him asking if he's free right now. A while later, they're in the lounging area where Sok-ju is bowing his head in respect and offering a late apology in person. Ijin tells him there's no need for that, as he understands the reason behind his actions. Yona then says she's pretty sure Ijin will deny it, and explains that Grandpa asked her to invite him on his behalf. Ijin agrees without hesitation, leaving. Yana quite puzzled to see that he actually agrees without protest for the first time. The scene then shifts to Jae, who is grinding her teeth in frustration. He's fuming mad that higher UPS aren't releasing Ijin's true identity just then. Her manager enters and mentions that the same student has arrived, which shocks Jae a little in the SW Corporation's men's locker room. Ijin is getting suited up in the company's dress code chic. Ju asks how Ijin ended up landing a job with SW Corporation. The scene transitions to the past where Ijin is reviewing the records of all the security personnel working for SW Corporation. The old man had told him to spend a few days with the team and share his thoughts. Since arrangements had been made to accommodate him, it should be fairly easy for Ijin to get a sense of the program back in the present. Ijin tells SEOQ that he simply wanted to experience what being in the security team is like, so ended up here with a job. SEOQ wonders if that means Ijin wants to be a bodyguard. Ijin then asks if SEOQ isn't joining the training in response. SEOQ explains that today's session is for Team 2, and he is part of Team 3. He adds that Team 3 escorts Yona exclusively, while Team 2 escorts Miss Jia and her parents. The scene transitions to a training hall where all the personnel are sitting on the ground. One of the instructors introduces Ijin to everyone, explaining that Ijin will be joining them for the next few days. He's in the same class as Sok-ju, and the chairman has allowed him to participate in their program to learn about their field. One of the men raises his hand and asks if Ijin is the one who handled the kidnapping situation with SEOQ. The senior confirms that he is indeed the same person. Ijin introduces himself and thanks everyone for letting him participate as the students begin their training. We see Yona standing above observing our boy SEOQ, reveals to her that our boy is here because he wanted to experience what it's like to be a bodyguard. Or at least that is what Ijin told him. Meanwhile, the guards are running down the halls engaged in their training as Yona watches our boys. She also notices someone else in the hall, and it's Jia along with her guard. Yona curiously wonders what she is doing there. Meanwhile, Ijin is running across the hall with the other soldiers, the senior leading the pack takes a quick look back and sees that Ijin is keeping up well, so he decides to pick up the pace, running even more intensely after several rounds. All the soldiers are completely out of breath, and the senior looks utterly exhausted, as if he might faint any moment. Ijin, however, looks as if nothing has happened. Taking just a simple, casual breath, the senior reveals to us that they've run enough to make anyone faint, but Ijin kept up the whole time, and even looks like he could handle 20 more laps. They move on to other intense exercises, and Ijin excels at those as well from the sidelines. Yona is absolutely blown away by how Ijin outperforms everyone, leaving them struggling to keep up. Meanwhile, Jia just sneers, saying it's just basic training. And still, Team 2 is falling way behind this kid as our boy stands there. The senior is wondering where in the hell they found this kid. He's questioning if he's been trained somewhere before because he's just too good. Then the senior notices Jia standing nearby, and his face goes pale as soon as he makes eye contact with her bodyguard. He realizes he's going to catch flack from Jae, and her bodyguard later for falling behind compared to a high schooler. Suddenly, one of the juniors raises his hand and points out that he's heard this student played a critical role in Miss Yona's rescue, so he wants to test the kid's skills himself. The senior gets angry and asks if he really wants to spar with a high school kid yelling at his junior for being out of his mind, but the senior finds himself completely blown away when the kid himself volunteers to fight and says he doesn't really mind senior completely. At a loss for words, scratches his head in frustration and reluctantly agrees. He tells his juniors to get the protective gear for our boy. Before long, our boy is decked out in his gear, and the other guy facing him gets suited up too. Yona wonders if this will be okay, and Sekju points out that it's hard to say. Given how tough the other guys are, even Jia thinks it would be pretty hilarious if this high school kid actually won. She mentions she's heard the kid has extraordinary fighting skills, but her bodyguard assures her that he's still no match for his men, because these guys have been highly trained in all sorts of combat long before they started working at SW. The senior tells both of them to just take it easy, especially telling his junior to go a bit easy on the kid, and the junior agrees. The senior then tells them to get ready, so the junior takes his stance and reminds our boy that not against those chumps he has beaten before, so he better be careful. Our boy doesn't even flinch at the jab, and simply takes his own stance as soon as the senior signals the start of the fight. The junior lunges at our boy with an incredible burst of speed and swings a punch right at his face, but our boy quickly steps back. The junior swings again with full force, but Ijin dodges effortlessly once more. Yona, growing anxious, points out that the soldier wasn't supposed to go that hard during a sparring match. But the soldier, however, keeps coming at Ijin, swinging his fists left and right. Ijin continues to dodge every attack effortlessly. Then Ijin quickly kicks the junior's leg, causing him to stagger. Seizing the moment, our boy balls up his fist and throws a brutal punch. The soldier quickly raises his hands to block, avoiding a direct hit. The fatty mocks our boy for his futile attack and gets ready to hit him with a punch of his own. But Ijin quickly deflects the incoming fist and counters with a brutal blow right to the bastard's face. That display of power leaves Yana breathless, and even her guard finds it pretty impressive that Ijin struck precisely where the fatty's face was exposed as the fatty writhes in pain. Ijin grabs him by the head and delivers a vicious knee smash to his face, leaving him bloody and beginning to collapse to the ground. GA is absolutely blown away by what just happened. While Ijin stands there as the clear winner with his opponent slumped unconscious on the ground, he removes the protective gear from his head, and both the senior and the other soldiers are stunned by the turn of events. Shokju notes that they were clearly instructed to take it easy, but this was just too intense. Jia speaks up again, questioning if this kid is really that 19-year-old. They claimed he was. Meanwhile, her bodyguard is fuming at the top of his head as Team 2 is part of his crew, and he is not at all happy to see one of his soldiers going down like flies after being beaten by a teenager. The other soldiers drag their incapacitated buddy off the ground, while Ijin remains the center of attention. By now, Senior has no doubt about Ijin's role in saving Yona from the kidnappers. Meanwhile, Jia's bodyguard is giving his soldiers death glares. They're all panicking, especially the senior, who's sweating bullets because he's sure he's in big trouble. Then another soldier, Bayam Sekchoi, raises his hand and volunteers to spar with Ijin too. The senior reminds him that they've already lost to a kid once and doesn't want to look foolish by losing again. But Bayam Sok, brimming with confidence, says he's really itching to fight Ijin. After seeing his impressive skills, the senior points out that they can't all just rush at Ijin, but Ijin says he's totally fine and not exhausted at all. He even adds that he hasn't moved around enough. And be tired. This freaks everyone out a bit. Because after taking down one of their top soldiers, he's practically saying he hasn't even broken a sweat. Sokju lets out a sigh, clearly not surprised by our boy's antics. Bayam Seok finally steps into the ring face-to-face with Ijin. While stretching his muscles, he casually asks our boy where he learned to fight like that, Ijin. Then asks if Bayam Seok isn't going to wear his headgear, to which the soldier confidently replies that he doesn't need it. He tells Ijin to go ahead and use one if he wants to. But Ijin was only asking for the guy's sake. He doesn't care about headgear either, so he just tosses it aside, surprising Bayam Seok, and even Yona. That's when Bayam Seok starts getting cocky, calling Ijin a punk and saying he likes his spirit. Jia then curiously asks her bodyguard what he thinks will happen this time. In response, he admits they made the mistake of underestimating Ijin earlier, but he's confident they can take him down. Now he takes major pride in his men who train tirelessly every single day. Not to mention our boy is about to face the ace of the team. This time Jia cracks a smile eagerly, anticipating how Baeum-sok will handle Ijin. Meanwhile, Yeona's bodyguard is starting to think Ijin might actually lose this round. In a weapon-free fight like this, it all boils down to physical strength, and Baeum-seokoi is a jacked-up dude. There's no telling what kind of rigorous training Ijin has had, but nothing can make up for the raw strength Baeum-seok is rocking as the fight begins. Baeum-seok, full of bravado, takes his stance and swings at Ijin, but our boy casually sidesteps the punch with ease. Ijin tries to land a punch on Baeum-seok, but this dude isn't here to mess around. He dodges Ijin's attack quickly and counters with a punch of his own. Ijin also tilts to the side to save him and throws another punch. But Baeum-seok grabs Ijin's fist and smirks. He acknowledges that Ijin's punch is stronger than he expected, based on his appearance. But Ijin isn't interested in mid-fight chit-chat. He throws another punch, but Baeum-seok blocks it effortlessly. He gives Ijin props for his great timing, but smirks and scoffs that no one can break his guard with pesky blows like that, but that's where he's dead wrong. Ijin quickly swings his leg and lands a solid kick to Baeum-seok's thigh. The cocky guy is now totally stunned, and the senior's jaw practically hits the floor to see our boy making a hardcore comeback. Then Ijin follows up with another brutal kick to Baeum-seok's leg by now. Baeum-seok is ABS. The girls in the school were going crazy. Apparently the new student is oh so handsome. The moment the boy walked in and was introduced, every girl's heart started pounding the room. Got hotter, and let's be honest, the girls got wet. The guys on the other hand not so thrilled. Let's just call it what it is.